107.5 FM, the air of success.
We are in the 5 o'clock hour, and if it's 5 o'clock, it's hard copy. Hard Copy is a presentation of the McKinney Media Group. Copyrights 2015, all rights reserved. The views, statements, and opinions of guests expressed on this show does not necessarily reflect the views of the host, sponsors, or operators of this radio station. No part of this program may be copied or reproduced in full or in part without the express written consent of the producers. Hard Copy. This is Hard Copy on the McKinney Broadcasting Radio Network. Hard Copy seeks to lay out the facts in simple fashion for the inclusion of all Bahamians and Bahamians at heart. The focus every day to move forthright in our manner to build a progressive and developing country. Our desire is for a Bahamas with a competent, skillful, and productive workforce. We want a country that can feed and sustain itself. We want a country with a brilliant visionary action plan that's ready to embrace a future of hope and prosperity. We encourage like-minded Bahamians to participate with intelligence and honest contributions. After all, friends, we have a country to build. We've got jobs and industry to create. We've got a people to inspire and empower, and generations of born and unborn Bahamians. We, the people, must protect and plan for. And if not you, then who? If not now, then when? Today on Hard Copy, new faces, new ideas, new ideology, a new day. Perhaps the road countdown to 2017.
3 words catapulted him to millionaire status. He calls it a wealth whisper. The Commonwealth Embassy presents the Billionaire Believer Summit 2015. 1 day, 2 nights of intensive success training. Dynamic speakers include Dr. Shawalta Johnson, Greg S. Reed, and Dr. Mike Murdoch of the Wisdom Center. Mark your calendars and make your way to the British Colonial Hilton, June 22nd to 23rd. Register now at CommonwealthEmbassy.org or call 376-8054. It's out of this world. Seats are limited.
Executive Printers. We're professionals. At Executive Printers, we do not participate in trash talk. We concern ourselves with the accuracy and security of your laser check. That is why we put 15 securities on your laser checks. This is not trash. This is fact. It makes fraud almost impossible. Call us today at Executive Printers at 393-5011 or email us at sales@epbahamas.com. That's sales@epbahamas.com. Executive Printers. Laser checks. We do them right.
Next is Now with the new Samsung Galaxy 6, now available at BTC. Stunning form meets breathtaking innovation and sophisticated design. The first ever smartphone with self-charging capabilities, so you don't need to plug it in. Get ready to discover the next Galaxy, another first from BTC.
Attention all shoppers. Win over $30,000 in trips this summer when you shop at Solomon's Cartwright and Fresh Market. Win round-trip tickets to New York, Atlanta, Panama, Cuba, Santo Domingo, and anywhere in the Bahamas when you buy any 4 of these brands in a single purchase. Hellman's, Pedigree, Joy, Coca-Cola, Libby, Sun Supreme, Mahatma, Bluebird, Charmin, Clorox, Vitamilk, Swab, Flash, and Robin Hood. Buy any 4 in a single purchase and win $30,000 only at Solomon's Cartwright and Fresh Market, Nassau and Freeport.
5 o'clock road rock, horse and carriage gently. People around the radio, they want to listen to Steve McKinney on hard coffee, hard coffee, hard coffee with Steve McKinney. A man of conviction, Bahamian to the bone, a voice of the people, so call him on your phone. Hard coffee, hard coffee, hard coffee with Steve McKinney. Da 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 da, da 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 da. Da 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 da. Hard Copy with Steve McKinney.
It is Thursday, the 11th day in the month of June, 2015. Excuse me, as you battle the congested city streets and drive home traffic. We have mostly cloudy skies, 86 degrees today in the nation's capital. There's also an overnight low of 77 degrees, and there is a 0% chance of rain in the forecast tonight. Thank you so much for joining us on the drive home. I'm Steve McKinney. This is Hard Copy. We're brought to you today by the Bank of the Bahamas, the Bank of Solutions, BTC Every Day, new Samsung S6 now available. Super Value, the All Bahamian Supermarkets, the McKinney Media Group for effective PR concepts and advertisement. Island Made Products, Ministry of Tourism, excuse me, AML Foods, Solomon Fresh Market, Cartwright, and the whole bunch doing a number of things to make sure you win big when you shop there. Advantage Insurance and Brokers, 61 Collins Avenue. Super Wash with 11 locations open 24/7. Ron's Electric Motors, they can fix anything. Sky Bahamas, professionals in every way, every day. CFA, Cleaner Financial Advisors Limited. The Billionaires Summit coming up. Executive Printers. Henry F. Store, the light people on Mackey Street. And Le Bleu, ultra pure drinking water. Of course, you know they're the official water of Hard Copy. We want to say a special good afternoon to the folks who are always listening into Hard Copy. One of them, a darling dear of mine, Patricia Benaby. How you doing this afternoon? We appreciate that you're listening in and tuning in as always to Hard Copy. Also, we want to say good afternoon to my libation man. You hear me with a scratchy throat? Well, the doctor is going to deal with that in a minute. His name is Sidney Higgs. And, of course, he's the best libation man, I call him, in the entire world. And, of course, I saw him today, as I did see Patricia Benaby over at Solomon's today. And that was quite a treat. And I do appreciate the fact that they listen in to Hard Copy every day, and they are part of our team in wanting to build a better Bahamas. You can call Hard Copy this afternoon at 325-0235 You can also call us at 325-0242 325-025-2053. You can text us on the BlackBerry 376-9234. Follow us on the World Wide Web, www.peace1075.com. On the cable top box at 970 on any on any iPad, iPhone, any Android. Go to TuneIn Radio and you'll get Peace. And then you can follow us on Facebook, Hard Copy, and on Twitter, Hard Copy Bahamas. Today, friends, we are turning the page. And you hear when I say we turn the page, and I'm wearing my hat these days. So that gives you a good indication that we are in the season. The season. Never mind, you haven't heard a bell. Nobody is ringing any bell this time, but the season is upon us. Excuse me. And so when you see the season is upon us and we say that we're turning the page, you need to pay attention because there's a rule of thumb here now. There are some of us who know a lot about a lot of things, but say very little about a lot of what we know. You got that? And so some things are happening as we speak. But, you know, it's quite interesting as we talk today on our program about new faces, new ideology, new ideas, new people. It's in line with all the prophecies of Miles Monroe 1 and 2. The Bahamas is pivoting. We're getting ready for new things to happen for a new people in this country because of the fact that people are tired of the same old, and they're looking for any new ideology that they can be a part of and feel that they are a part of. And so the page is turning now. And I will tell you that just recently, we heard from Frank Watson. Frank Watson, of course, is the former Deputy Prime Minister of the Bahamas, former Deputy Leader, excuse me, of the Free National Movement. And Frank Watson was in the media just recently saying to Dr. Hubert Minnis, he says, he had to step up his game, make himself more appealing to voters. He said that, he was doing any number of things that he thought should shore up the party, even called for Brandon McCartney to come back home. This is Watson trying to boost the Free National Movement, so he thought, based upon what he had observed. So he even called for him to come back home, and Brandwell subsequently said, look, there's no thing like that happening. Brandwell is fully in charge of what he's doing, and he is running his DNA, and they are gaining some momentum. You hear what I said? As far as them sticking with the issues and trying to resolve some things. I see where they're going to have a press conference tomorrow with the automotive people to show cause why Christie should take another look at his budget allocation and his budget stipulations and his announcements about used cars and so forth and so on. So that's quite interesting. And that's what I mean when I say Granville McCartney, like him or don't like him, he is still on the issues and looking for innovative ways to do some things and get the people involved. That's to his credit. And some people say, well, that's okay. But the page is turned. We're in a different dispensation right now. If you don't know what I'm saying, listen, you'll understand. The other thing that's happening is because what Frank Watson said, everybody got to asking Menace, what are you really doing anyway? You're the leader of the Free National Movement. There's no question about it. But you had said all kinds of things about new people. When you won the last time in November, you talked about you're going to bring some new people on. That's people's attitude toward Menace on this whole matter of you said that you're going to be rolling out candidates. We haven't heard anything really, but perhaps they are doing it. The point what I'm making is that the time has come in the Bahamas for us to flip the script. We've been talking about all the stuff that's going wrong. We've been talking about all the stuff that we would like to see, and we're not seeing it. Now let us see who are these people who want to be a part of something big and grand, as is the philosophy and the prophecy of Miles Monroe, that a paradigm shift will happen, that new people will come from everywhere that we have never seen before to rebuild this Bahamas, to possess this Bahamas, and to take it to the next level. That's what Dr. Monroe said. And so people are looking and they're watching. And the countdown to that particular time of switchover is now. June 10th to July 10th makes the completion. So we're like in the last quarter of this prophecy that took place in 2014, July 10th. And this is where we are. So we're looking for the new people. We're looking to see young men come up and say, hey, I want to do something. We're looking for people in the police force to say, hey, we're ready to fight crime. We're looking for those in the private sector to say, hey, we're going to help the government find some jobs and give some people some jobs and just get this country moving. But more importantly, we're looking for leadership. We've been in a search for leadership for a little while, and so leadership is key. And so this is what Menace told me when he won in November of last year. And ever since I've been on his case saying, where are these people? Menace said this to me.
You must expand their base. You cannot believe that just this inclusive group will carry you forward. If you do that, then what you're doing, you're basically holding your party in bondage. If you want to move forward, then you must have open views and you must invite people and accept people. If you want to be very myopic and stay and believe that this is a family dynasty, this is my party, this one party or the next, then you're destined for disaster. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's Menace talking to me after that victory and showcasing that, some people had been believing that this whole thing was about them and dynasties. And that's the way it is in all political parties, But he was making that comment at the time because he's feeling pretty chipper. He just won. And he wants to have a new direction. And he's been low-keyed on that particular part of it, except to say a couple of weeks back, he had made mention that they were out looking for candidates. They were looking for new people, and they wanted to build a new grouping. And he's had a share of criticisms there. But today, we're going to talk with a couple of young men who, in fact, you may have heard about in some aspect, but you never really got to feel who they were in the power punch of the game of politics. And so today on the show, I've invited, and I have with me today, Howard Johnson, Mr. Bamboozle. You remember him. He was from Eleuthera and was taking on, I think, Damien Gomez and down there. And Damien Gomez got out by just a little squeaker, just by the hair of his chinny chin chin. And this young man, Howard Johnson, was loved by everybody, PLPs and F&Ms. He just electrified the place because of his style and his uniqueness and his presentation. Also, with me today is Colin Ingram. He's the son of the late Winifred Ingram and Edward Bethel. Colin is a businessman, motivational speaker, and an avid junkanoo. And so he has an interest in doing some things. So we're looking today at new faces, new people, new ideas, new ideology, new beginnings, perhaps. We're going to talk with both gentlemen in just a minute and talk to them about the state of affairs, about their views on all of the major things that plague us. And so today, ready or not, here they come after these words.
When it comes to hurricane season, being ready isn't enough. You have to be prepared. Prepare early at Super Value and Quality Supermarkets with great specials like 15-ounce Libby's corn or sliced beets, $1.39. Seneca apple juice, 64-ounce size, $2.99. Domestic foil, 25-foot box, $1.49. Fresh Currito all-purpose cleaners, 32-ounce bottle, $1.59. Low sodium Ciara chicken franks, 12-ounce pack, 99 cents. Find everything you need to be prepared this hurricane season at Super Value and Quality Supermarkets.
All of our parents were ambassadors of tourism at one time or the other. Your mom and dad and their mama and papa built this country squarely on providing a first-class tourism product. They smiled, they entertained, they shared their culture with the guests who came from far and wide, and they made tourism the #1 industry of our country. They did something more. They left us, the new generation of Bahamians, in charge of the goose that lays the golden egg, tourism. We can't fail them or our country. We must keep the tradition alive by doing the little things that mean a lot. A welcoming smile, a friendly wave, and a clean surrounding. After all, this is the beautiful Bahamas, an island nation of beautiful people who continue to make it happen. And that's why it's better in the Bahamas.
At Henry F. Store Electric Company, we supply all your electric needs for any size project, from residential housing to luxury hotels. We can help you achieve just the right look, from doorbells to chandeliers, table lamps to ceiling fans, wire, conduit, panels, dimmers, switches, plugs, and even tools. And don't forget light bulbs. We have those hard-to-find, energy-saving fluorescent bulbs and more. Henry F. Store Electric, number 135 Mackey Street. Over 50 years of reliability, service, and low prices. We also ship to the Family Islands.
The best insurance in town is Advantage Insurance on Collins Avenue. They are simply the best because they provide easy, affordable insurance rates for home, car, business, or whatever is valuable or important to you. Advantage Insurance and Brokers, 61 Collins Avenue, is the fastest, most progressive insurance company in the Bahamas because they really take care of you by making insurance totally affordable. Call them now at 356-0285 or 6, or email them at info@advantagebahamas.com.
When I fly with Sky. Sky Bahamas. When I fly with Sky. Sky Bahamas. The plane them spanking clean. The pilots them voice red. They fly you out on time. They flight attendants red. Service is their passion. With you they take good care. Safety is their culture. Yes, they'll get you there when I fly.
Fly with us to Fort Lauderdale or the beautiful Bahama Islands. Book today at 702-2600 or visit our website at skybahamas.net and experience Sky.
The choices we make can make us, like who we turn to for investment and retirement advice. Choosing CFAL means having a trusted advisor on your side, helping you build wealth and meet your financial goals. We manage pension assets for businesses and offer individual plans to help you design a secure retirement. We can provide brokerage services and comprehensive research support for clients needing a little more investment guidance. CFAL can help you build a portfolio you can be proud of. Visit us at cfal.com. CFAL sees your future.
We're slipping further and further. Manage this country better.
Y'all can afford to suck your teeth and say who y'all think y'all is. Still stand up for justice.
This is the public's business.
And what you doing is the best thing, because you've been overrun not just now, a little while now.
This is a country that we're running.
How can we get back on track, Mr. McKinney? Help me, please. I am confused.
Anything is possible in this little hair town that we call the Bahamas. Anything is possible. Welcome back. We say a new beginning, new faces, new attitude. Are you ready for this? Because there are many people in our country who are ready to see this country pivot and recalibrate and go to another level, because they're sick and tired of the misery index and of many things. They're sick and tired of just can't see where they're going. And as a result of that, people are in search now. The public is shopping. They are shopping for something called leadership. And leadership is a rare thing in the Bahamas these days. The real kind of leadership that people are looking for. And so we've got to begin at some point in time. And today I want to see if I can intrigue you by letting you know that there are people in this country who believe that they have something to offer. Are you one of those people? As I said in the opening, you heard a lot from Myles Munroe over the course of the weeks on our show talking about the time has come for this paradigm shift. And many people are locking onto it. Many people believe that. I too believe it. I think that there are many people in our country who want to do a good job from both sides of the political divide, or should I say from all three sides of the political divide. They want to do a good job. Some we know, some we don't know, and we'll never get to know them, really, if we don't talk with them. So I've turned the page today, and at least once a week, I want to be able to talk with some new people to find out what they're thinking, because we seem to be in a Jurassic age in many regards with the seasoned politicians, and we're not getting any new traction on areas of development that we need to go. After all, you know, there's one group of that asks us to give them some contributions as far as what we think the 40-year plan should be about, and that if we are believing in the stronger Bahamas, then we should contribute, is what some people are saying. That, of course, has been regulated to the scrapyard of political tricks, and so people have not responded to it in kind, I suppose, the way that the authors of it had expected them to. But this afternoon, I want to say hello to Howard Johnson and, of course, Colin Ingram. They're both young men who are wanting to be a part of a new growth and development. How you all doing today?
We're fine, thank you.
Wonderful. That's Colin.
Good afternoon, Steve. Thanks for having me.
And that's Mr. Bamboozle. You remember him from the last election. Last election, Mr. Bamboozle ran inside the constituency called Central and South Eleuthera, I think it's called. And on the first count, he was the winner by 9. On the second count, he was the loser by 66. But nonetheless, he kept strong, went back to school, is back home, is in search of his country. And I wonder, Mr. Johnson, do you recognize it still?
Yes, there's lots of stuff going on, Steve, lots of reasons for us to be concerned today, but it's also an opportunity. You know, we look around, we see the challenges that we're faced with in various sectors of our society, but for a young man like myself who believe that I have something to offer, I see those challenges as opportunities for us to really inject our new age, new way of thinking into resolving and solving some of the problems, the critical problems that the nation's faced with. So I'm just happy to be here and back home, and I just want to make my contribution.
Absolutely. And of course, also with us is Colin Ingram. He's the son of the late Winifred Ingram, as I told you, and Edward Bethel. And of course, Colin is a businessman just like Mr. Johnson. He's a businessman as well. And both are motivational speakers, both young men doing things in their neck of the woods. And Colin Ingram, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, sir, and thank you so much for having us on the show today.
Well, of course, I see where you went to R.M. Bailey High School, so I know that about you. Also, College of the Bahamas, graduating with a BBA in management, and of course, advanced certificate in public administration. You've been a youthful cultural activist, passionate about education, how to transform the Bahamas. And of course, you remember the Valley Boys, are you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Boys.
Real firms. I'm actually one of the spokespersons for the Valley Boys.
And you're going to parish of the Most Holy Trinity Anglican Church.
Yes, sir.
And of course, Mr. Johnson enrolled as a PhD student in the Department of Conflict Analysis and Resolution at Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale. Of course, you know, you've been off to school for a bit. And he's doing a number of things now to bring what he believes is a vision to the country, and is interested in helping to build the country. Myles Munroe said that we will see people that we have never seen before and hear from people who we've never heard from before. There'll be a paradigm shift. There'll be a new thing. In fact, this is what he said.
We are now in a moment where the old weapons that kept the Bahamas don't work no more. I speak prophetically that we are now about to enter in the next few days a period of what I call the last moment. From July 2014 to July 2015, there shall be tremendous change in 1 year. You watch. There shall be many people dying. I'm telling you, many will be sick. Many will be removed in ways we can't explain. Why? Because God got to make sure that the place is clear. I speak prophetically. You watch my word in the next 12 months from the day of July 10th to 14, there shall be magnificent changes which no one can control. And there shall emerge in the next 12 months leaders you never saw before. There shall be young women and men emerging whose ideas will blow your mind, and they cannot wear the old armor anymore. They shall walk with a new mentality. They shall have a spirit upon them. That shall be the Spirit of God, and they shall take us into the next Bahamas. I speak to you with my whole heart that God is saying the time for a new leadership has been birthed. It has arrived.
That's what Dr. Monroe told me. That's what he told an audience last year. The time for new leadership has been birthed. It has arrived. What do you think of leadership, gentlemen? Let's talk a little bit today about leadership. What do you conceive leadership to be? What do you perceive leadership to be? Do we have the kind of leadership on the scene right now that compels you to want to be a part of building a new Bahamas? Let's start with you, Colin. This leadership thing, what is this? Are we lacking it? Do we have it? Leadership talks about inspiring people and bringing people along. Do you feel inspired and brought along?
I feel that we are very challenged with leadership in every sphere of this country at this time, whether it's even you hear the turmoil even from the area that I'm very happy to be a part of, Jungle. You see new groups forming, the old guard being challenged like never before, and people believing in these persons who have these new ideas, that they're putting the resources behind them. And you see the same thing with regards to our national leadership in regards to politics. Some persons, when they spoke, people automatically went and gravitated to them and said, you know what, we can follow you. We understand where you're seeking to carry us. We understand what you're seeking to do for the Bahamas. But today that is something that is sorely lacking. And the reason is some persons have simply stayed on too long. They've stayed on past their time of being able to bring the Bahamas where we need it to be. And that's why I listened to somebody last night. We are having a function where a lot of the senior persons or the former leaders, former persons who developed the FNM, and one of those persons said to some of the young persons there, these young persons need to understand they wait the time. You know, they got to toe this line. They have to do these things. You know, and they have, but if we don't grasp in our country and in the free national movement that there's a major shift that has happened in this country, if we don't grasp that, we're going to fall further behind as a country and as a people. And you see, when you go to the area that I happen to reside in, I live in Stapleton, which is in the Mount Moriah constituency, and you speak to the young people, and you hear them, you know what the problem is? They lack faith in leadership.
Wow.
They do not believe the words that comes out of our mouth. They don't believe the words. When somebody says something, and they're a politician or even a pastor or somebody who will be in the leaders of our country,
they doubt it.
Talking foolishness.
Yeah,
we heard that before.
They dismiss it.
It's absolutely dismissed.
They've lost faith.
They've lost faith.
Is that because there's a disconnect, though? Is that because that you made mention of leaders and persons who are around who I would call experienced men, who in fact perhaps don't want to give up this mantle of leadership to the point where they're dismissing young people? Do you think that that's because there's a disconnect? Remember now, this generation is a generation of technology. I mean, you know, these guys are texting, they're doing all kinds of stuff. And a lot of us in the other direction who perhaps be going over the hill now, we're not as savvy as they are. That's one aspect of it. There's also not understanding the new attitude, the new language that has evolved in our country, throughout the world, among young people. We don't seem to feel them anymore, and they certainly don't feel us. Is there a disconnect that maybe leadership has not recognized in all areas, religious, politics, all that. Do you think that there's something that they don't realize, or do you think that they can categorize it as this group of young people, they just don't have no respect, that this is a bad group of young people? What do you think is happening here? Why there seems to be what I call a disconnect?
There is a disconnect. The reality is the ideas that they're putting forward now are ideas that should have been put forward in the 70s. They're no longer relevant in today's world. But you have to understand, people have been in these positions and they've gotten accustomed to being the determinants. They decide who is the winners. They decide who runs. They decide who gets the contracts. They decide all of these things. They decide who gets the scholarships. And it's difficult to leave that kind of thing, because coming with that also comes power, women, other opportunities. And so I understand the psychology of
why they want to hang around,
why you want to be there. I understand that. But at the same time, the problem is the majority of the people in the country now, especially the young people, don't feel them. That's what the problem is. They don't feel them. So when they're speaking,
they tune them out.
When they're speaking, they're changing the channel. They change the channel. As soon as they see certain people, they switch the channel. They change the dial. They change the radio station. That's what happens. So they are no longer connecting to the average people in this country, especially the young people. And that is that's the challenge that we face. And we have a very talented country, and we have great opportunities based on our geography, the natural resources, and the kinds of forward thinking that we need to be able to maximize these things. But the reality is, when you speak to some of them, they either say, "You're talking a little fool there." You
mean when you speak to some of the people on the scene?
Senior person who's been there for a while, man, you have all these lofty ideas, and you want to do this. That can't work. It can't work. Guess what? It's working elsewhere. It's working elsewhere. Other countries are transforming the country for the betterment of their people because they're taking that chance. They're believing in the people that you trained. You sent us to school. You asked us to get educated. You asked us to go out there and do the things to be able to be a benefit for our country. And now that we've come home, you're saying to us, you're talking foolishness. You didn't get time in. That's a major problem. And the young persons of this country are saying, absolutely, we don't have time for you. We don't support it. We're looking for something else.
What is that something else, though, Mr. Howard Johnson? What is that something else that people are looking for? Colin said a mouthful just now, and I hear him, and it resonates, because I'm experiencing now where people are saying basically the same thing to me in feedback, that these guys, they're out of it. They don't know what's going on.
Right.
But what is it that has to happen from a point of view of leadership, first and foremost? What is your expectation of leadership? And do we have the leadership now required to build the new Bahamas?
Well, on the conceptual level, leadership, in my mind, consists of, the ideas, plans, your behavior, people, being able to inspire people to say, hey, here's a problem or a challenge we have in this country. Here's a plan that I have. Let's collaborate and work together on this, and let's try and solve this problem. That's on the conceptual level. Leadership, however, the second component or the second part of it is the action. Do you have the follow through? You see, you're inspiring people. You have these plans and these great ideas, but where's the follow through? I think that's part of the problem in this country. The follow through and the consistency, the long-term consistency to get things done. And that seems to be a cultural impediment we're faced with in the Bahamas. We don't stick with things for the long haul. And a lot of times it's because we're in a culture where instant gratification is so significant and important for us. We want what we want, and we want it now. But I believe that our predecessors in leadership, some of whom are currently still on the scene, part of the issue is they have, while we thank them for their contributions, my real issue with a lot of them is they did not do succession planning. See, we shouldn't have a disconnect between our generation and the preceding generation, simply because whoever made the first step, if my generation of leaders had said, previous generation of leaders, please take us under your wing, mentor us, teach us what we need to know, and then we combine that with our fresh new ideas from our generation, and we try to move forward. Right. And if it was from their end where they said, young man, I see some potential and some talent in you, young men, young women, come, let me second you to myself, my team, and teach you the ways of the institutions, you know, of the things that we're doing in our organizations. And you couple that with the things that you bring to the table, your new ideas and new generation perspectives, and get the things that we need done. Because every generation is going to have something to do. If Perry Christie and Hubert Ingram were responsible for or able to get everything done, then we wouldn't need a government. We wouldn't have continuity, you know, so there had to be something left for us. I was on a talk show a few weeks ago and the gentleman said, well, you know, yes, Hubert Ingram opened up the airwaves, but he didn't go far enough. We still can't hear Guardian Radio on the Family Islands other than via internet. And I said to him, you know, it was Carlton Smith show. And I said, well, Carlton, that's why I'm here. You know, I understand the need for the deepening of mass communication in that way. Colin understands that. So Mr. Ingram might have taken us to a certain point, and then by attrition, it's your time to get off the scene. And so it's our responsibility now to take up the baton, take up the mantle, and further the cause of empowering and deepening the democracy in that particular way. So that's my example.
I understand you very clear, and I like how both of you talk so far. I want to ask you, though, this is very, very key. We are in search of new faces and new people with new ideas and new leadership. But that leadership has got to be grounded in something. Today, we are inundated with the viewpoints and the ideologies and philosophies of agnostics, atheists, evolutionists, not really Christian, not really people who subscribe to what our Constitution outlines in the very beginning of the preamble, that we are a nation with godly principles, and of course that we believe in the sovereignty of God, that kind of a thing. And today we see politicians coming on the scene who seem to be cold and callous, uncaring about the average little man. And many people are crying in society today, not only here in the Bahamas, but elsewhere, because they have people who are in possession of the leadership of their country, the governance of their country, and they're not being served because their minds aren't on the things that we expect them to be on. So I've got to ask you, what's your position as far as Christianity is concerned, as far as believing that God is a sovereign God that controls and that looks out for the Bahamas? In fact, what I'm asking you is that, where do you stand on that particular topic? Because many politicians are watery on that particular topic, and you've never heard anybody ask anyone where you are with believing in a divine power.
This is Colin Ingram. Let me answer this. And I listened to what you said, and I want to answer in twofold. Firstly, very directly, I believe in God, the Father, the Son. Started the story where you have seen me.
I saw you.
I always do that prayer. Always. Before I speak, any public speaking engagement, anything that I do, I ask God to guide my tongue and my actions. I know I'm not perfect, and so only through Him that I can do what is necessary to develop the kingdom in the Bahamas. So it's through Him. And I take it from that perspective. But going deeper, you mentioned something that the persons who are leading seem not to connect with the people in a very fundamental way, not the average person. But see, Howard and I represent the average person. He's a Governor Salva young boy who had to go through some things to become the man he is today. It wasn't easy. I'm the same person. My family's from Hatchet Bay. But I grew up for the most part in Nassau. And I lived in an area, Marathon. And if you know what Marathon was in the late 1980s, 1990s, we had the biggest drug dealer. You understand?
We know.
And
we remember.
I was faced with that. I was laughed at because I decided to pay attention in school and not get involved in the drug culture. I was faced with that, where sometimes I was even, I tell people, I know what it is to have a 357 in my mouth and an Uzi in my back. Just walking home. I know what that is. I know what the struggle is. I know what the struggle is to have a father who died at 3, and my mother who had to work 2 and 3 jobs as a cook and cleaning people's homes just to make it. And I was, from 7, making $10 a week, helping out somebody in construction. That's how I got in the construction trade. Or I was a packing boy at Haddings. So I am those persons. I represent those persons. So
you can identify. There's a connection.
I live with it. I grew up with it. I still connect with them. I still, through John Canoe, go into Beantown and Angliston, and it's still back in the Marathon and the Union Village and all these different areas, and then now into Yellow Elder.
Has it gotten worse?
It has gotten worse. It has gotten worse because people have lost faith. They've lost faith. And because of that, and going back again to what you're saying, many of the initiatives that I'm seeking to do in the community is through the church. The church are my partners. Where there's Most Holy Trinity, where there is Christ Church near JHS, where there's Harold Road Union Baptist. They are the vehicles that I'm seeking to touch the lives, because even if we can provide them with the programs for education, if they do not have love and consideration and value for their lives or yours, we're still going to fail because they're going to destroy themselves on us. That's the challenge.
What is your position, Howard Johnson? We heard you. You came on the scene like a meteor when we did meet you the first time around 2009. I think you went back to school, but after it was to 2000, the last election, 2012, thereabouts. A lot of people were looking at you, studying you, and were very impressed with you. What's your grounding? I know that you came up with your mom. Your mom, yes. You're the son of Emily Petty, yes, and the late Edmund Eddie Johnson, who yes. was a businessman. And of course, you are now yourself a businessman, politician, motivational speaker, and you come from Eleuthera, as the gentleman said just now. He's from Hatcher Bay originally. What's your reference as far as the center of your being? Because these things and yes. these questions are very important now. We, the people. Let me just tell you both gentlemen right now, I think that you both have political ambitions, but the people are now looking very, very hard at leadership. Yes. They are scrutinizing anybody who would get a semblance of a chance in the politics in the Bahamas today. Of course, this is the scrutiny process. So who's Howard Johnson when it lines up to his belief system?
Right. Well, I like to make this a little offside humorous joke. I always tell people, my ma ain't born no politician. That's one of my favorite phrases. Most people in this country would know me as Mr. Bamboozle, having stepped on the scene, but just a few would have known me prior to that. But if you go down into this little place called Governor's Harbor, Eleuthera, where I'm from, and you ask about Emily Petty and her stock, and she's listening, by the way. Hi, Mom. If you ask about the stock of Emily Petty, there's a Judeo-Christian foundation, that's grounded in God and Jesus Christ as the Savior. I grew up under that. My mom has been a preacher since 1975.
Yes,
I grew up, and I grew up in the church. I have had no less than 3 or 4 uncles who had been or are still ministers. My uncle here in Nassau, Reverend Sylvanus Petty, has a church on Ponciana Drive. My next uncle in Governor's Harbor, Eleuthera, Bishop Clifford Petty, National Church of God in Governor's Harbor. My late uncle, Reverend Charles Sands, who died untimely 4 years ago with a heart attack in Governor's Harbor after preaching a sermon. Inspiration Fellowship Center. These are my family members.
So you're steeped in the culture.
Immediate family members. Yes, and it's very important to have that foundation because it allows you to see things as they are, but you have to believe in people. You have to believe that there's something greater than yourself, and you have to understand and know that there's an interconnectivity between us and our brethren. We're responsible for them. I am my brothers and sisters' keeper, and that foundation is definitely Christian in nature. And I truly believe that our leaders should come from that kind of cloth, because it goes hand in hand with you having the authority, the legitimate governmental authority to make decisions on behalf, directly or indirectly, of people on a daily basis. And if you have no center, if there's no moral compass, then what's guiding your decision making? It's just willy-nilly. It's whatever goes. It's looking out for yourself, family members, lovers, friends, and whatever have you. So you need that centering and that grounding. And I'm so happy that I was fortunate enough, even before deciding to step into frontline politics, I'm very happy that that foundation and that grounding in the Christian faith is what undergirds who I am.
What's your persons of your ilk who believe in God, who want to do good, who have compassion, who feeding for the people? What's your view about that when it comes to politics? There are many people who say this is a dirty business. Persons of goodwill and good character really can't fare too well in this, because you've got to be able to do some slippery things, and I'm putting it mildly, to be able to get ahead. How do you respond to that in a culture where we are now in the Bahamas, where it seems like those things that would be, I suppose, not so good for our development from a moral point of view are the things that we are pushing right now? We have gambling. While people may say, well, show me the Bible, all this stuff, they say, show me the Bible where this is not. We have a lot of things that we are doing that seems to be a challenge when it comes to steadfast morality, acceptance. We have challenges in that area. There are other things that we are doing in the Bahamas today that seems to be the new way of building our country. Some people call it slackness. Some call it Junkanoo Carnival. Some call it all kinds of other things that we are doing. It seems like we're not doing business the normal way through traditional business in our country. Traditional business has made way now for many gambling casinos all across the landscape. In Eleuthera and every place you can think of, we have this. How do you respond and say that men like you, who want to show forth a new attitude, new ideas, can compete in an environment that seems to be inundated, clouded with the others who are more aggressive, who will do anything in the cut and thrust of politics? How do you see how you can fare? How do you think that this can fit into the Bahamas today, the kind of leadership, the kind of position that you want to bring? How do you think that that can fit into our context of politics today?
And thus we are here. And thus we are here. Last election, I saw some of the nastiest things in terms of people taking advantage of young people with the use of drugs and alcohol, even for in the instance of underage persons, to bring this carnival-like atmosphere, this party atmosphere, and then take these same young men and use them to intimidate their own neighbors, to bring fear into their own neighbors, simply to win an election. Simply to win an election. So I understand fully where you're coming from, but that's why we're here. It has to be some persons who are going to get involved and stand up and say, we need to change the culture. We need to change the perception and the reality of what people believe politics is. Every time I speak to certain people with regards to politics, they say, well, you know what they're eating. So you getting what you complaining about? Well, you know, it's this. No, it is as we make it. And it is up to us who say we wish to lead communities, who say we wish to transform the lives of people, to get in there and show them different. And how do we do that? We do that by going with them and connecting with them at a very fundamental level. The average person doesn't believe in a politician. So what do? When they see you, man, give me something. Give me something. Because I know when you get in, you ain't gonna check for me. Or I know when you see you, give me something.
How do you compete with that? How do you compete with that kind of attitude?
Here it is, though. When you say you wish to represent me, you sit and you listen and you try to come to a reasonable point where you can grasp what the general consensus is in the community. And then you go there and you start to do tangible things. That may it may not require a lump. In Mount Moriah, there are a lot of young persons who have been murdered in that area. In fact, it was amongst the top areas in the country right now with murders, violent deaths. 2 persons just recently got murdered in Yellow Elder. So what we did is we formed a grouping, an alliance, using the churches and the other community agencies, where there was the Yellow Elder Association, Yellow Elder Crime Watch, Stapleton Association, Stapleton Crime Watch, and we got together and we did the largest cleanup of the Yellow Elder community. Then we went during that time, because there were still families in the area that were grieving, whose children were murdered. And we went and we visited every one of those persons. We sat and we spoke with them. We sat to let them know that we're here, we care. We know what we may not fully grasp what it is to lose a loved one in that manner, but we want you to know. We want you to know that there are people in this community that really, genuinely care about you and your family. So we did that. You know, and there's some sad stories in there. I was just telling Howard when we were sitting out there, there's a case where a family, somebody was killed on their porch on a Wednesday, and then that Saturday night, a young lady was shot through the window.
Yeah.
And when they went to Freeport and they came back, their house was burnt out and their car was burnt down. And people don't want to talk about it. But that's the reality we face in this country. And see, when you go in there and people see you doing this kind of work, when we also did a cleanup. And when we did the cleanup, I didn't just go in there and say, let's go clean up an area. I went and I actually lift the dirt, helped them move the dirt. You know what happened? Other persons jumped in and they volunteered. They came in. And they said, you know, we didn't do anything at first. We heard y'all send the flyer out. Y'all mentioned that on the radio that you was going to do this. But we didn't believe you because people always saying things.
Yeah. It's a difficult thing. It's
Yes,
difficult to deal with. But I put that same question to you.
Here's how I'll answer this, Steve. I'll set the stage by anecdotal story. You imagine this scenario. A young man grows up in a family, okay? And in this family, politics is everything. It gets to a heightened state when campaign season comes around. And from a little boy up to sees things going on that he doesn't quite understand. And then the closer he gets to voting age and understanding, he begins to get information about this process, this political process, this campaign process. And in that process, you learn, well, you got to get something from this fella, he running. Get something from the next fella too. So you're teaching unethical behavior and corruption. You tell this young man, ask for things, it's worth something tangible. It is of some monetary, or as we say in the Bahamas, thingsy value. It have some thingsy value. And so this young man learns everything about all of what's negative and corrupt about the political system and the process. At about 30 something, this very same young man decides that he wants to become a politician and run for office. The monster, though, is already created. In this country, our problem is we think politicians are born as big as they are. Politicians come from the society that breeds them. That's a fact. So in the example that I'm using, you have this young man who's been taught from small to man. Everything is corrupt about politics. And when he enters the Honorable House of Assembly, you expect for him to be what? He's going to be corrupt. So, you know, I preface that. Now I want to answer the question. For me, I combat that and I've counteracted that going back to my foundation. My mother all life has been in the church and in the community. I mean, she's done it. President of the Governors Harbor Development Association, leader of her district group of churches, in charge of my profession, everything, Red Cross, everything, Friends of the Library, everything you can possibly name that's community oriented, my mom has been involved in. And over the years, as you can imagine, she has had on many people. That has come back to me. in very positive and meaningful ways. People have helped me tangibly because of my mother's impression on them and what she has done in impacting their lives. Some have come up to me and said, if it wasn't for your mother, I would not have graduated from high school. I would have been in prison. I would have been on drugs. I would have been strung out. I would have been a murderer. Your mom did something for me. So I got bitten with that bug very early on, caring about people, wanting to help people to better themselves, to empower themselves, to pay it forward, because if I can help someone as they travel along, that's someone that isn't sticking a gun in my face or in my back, that Colin is saying. You're providing them with some hope and some opportunities. That's the first thing that keeps me grounded as far as when you're facing this corrupt arena of politics. The second thing is, when I was about 16 years old, I had a close relationship with my grandfather, and his house was across the street from a graveyard and the sea. Howard, look out there in the water and tell me what you see. I say, well, Pa, I see a couple, $1 million yacht boats. I see a few Boston whalers, and I see a couple of little dinghies that shouldn't even be out there. So he said, no, what do you see? And I couldn't understand. So I was like, well, Pa, I must see losing it today, but there was a moral of the story. My grandfather said to me, Howard, the tide is rising. There's $1 million boats, and there are cheap boats out there. He said, but the rising tide is raising and lifting all of those boats. Whatever you do in your life, whatever you seek to accomplish, when you get there, seek to bring others up with you. And that's part of my
talking with you both today, because people are in search of a new direction in our young men, in all those individuals who want to put themselves forth for politics, for office in this country. And you better get used to it, because those are the kind of questions that are going to come your way, simply because people are sick and tired of electing people who they really don't know. We now know that they're both gentlemen here today. Colin Ingram and Howard Johnson both are grounded in God and faith. They believe in people. They want to do things. They both have records of community development. And they're both island boys who know just how hard it can be when nobody checking for you. And plus, they're young. They're young. They're full of strength. They at the pinnacle of where you should be when you want to get into politics to bring the country along. But let's talk about that for a minute before we run to the break, because what I'm getting at here is that I want to know who these people are that have been prophesied to come forth. I want to know if they meet the criteria, if they meet the standard of the Bahamian people. The Bahamian people are tired. The older people, the middle-aged people, the young, they're tired. They're tired of being promised. They're tired of not having effective governance, effective members of parliament doing things on their behalf. What do you see right now in the country? And I want you to be honest with me. What do you see, and how do you feel it could be corrected? What do you see, first and foremost? And give me short answers today. What do you see on the level of state of affairs of the country right now? What do you see is happening that is causing us not to progress as fast as we could? Or maybe we are progressing as fast as we could. Give me your idea of the state of affairs right now in the Bahamas from your perspective. Go ahead.
My idea.
Colin Ingram.
Yes, sir. Where we are, in my view, is we are a country with great potential, a lot of opportunities, but we simply have had leadership that's been in place far too long, and we are not maximizing our potential. There's simply, for me, for the business that I'm in, and just very quickly, in doing some work with one of the projects I was working on, I met some persons who work with the World Bank. And they started speaking to me with regards to how they assess countries and how you get all the various ratings. But they also spoke to me about sovereign funds and all these kinds of things, and they put these things in my head. And then I started discussing these things. And then persons from a different generation, like, you're talking foolishness.
Yeah.
And they don't understand, not understanding how we can use sovereign funds to transform our country without putting ourselves in major debt. So when you ask in a nutshell where we are a country with great potential that due to the lack of leadership or leadership that has gone stale, that is simply not living up to where we should be and providing the kinds and quality of life for the Bahamian people.
What are your thoughts, Howard, as far as the state of affairs and what do you see?
Well, when we look at the problems, Steve, that we're faced with, the challenges to leadership, the social problems that seem to be exacerbated on a daily basis, you have to peel back the layers. Lack of leadership, as Colin mentioned just now, but finds its origin in a lack of accountability and a lack of responsibility, okay, which finds its origin in representation. Our problem is we don't have full and proper representation. We see, for example, the referendum that happened a few years ago, right? With the Prime Minister saying that we would abide by the will of the people, and then changed his mind and said, we're going to go with what the vote wasn't. That's a lack of representation. And what happens is we, the Bahamian people, sit back, elect our representatives, fold our arms and cross our legs, and then we say, now go do for me. Representation consists of the representative and the represented working hand in hand. So if you go home and sit down and wait for this fella who you choose from among you to do it for you, then you don't know what's going on. Anything goes, because you're leaving your future, the future of your children and your grandchildren, to the carte blanche whims of these people. Unabated, they can operate, and with impunity. And so when you don't see a representation in this country as a partnership between you and the people who you elect, being permissible to question what they do on a daily basis, how they act, and what their representation means to you, if you're not taking part as an active participant in that on a daily basis or whenever it is necessary, this is what the full result is of not doing it, what we're seeing right now.
Do you think, and I've said over and over today, that people are tired, they're miserable, they're unsure. We don't see, for instance, once upon a time in my many years of doing talk radio, we would have gotten people who would have called on the radio stations to defend their party, to defend the government on many fundamental issues if they thought that media was a little bit too harsh on them, or if they thought that media was just inaccurate or just unknowing on certain things. They would call and correct. We don't get that anymore in the country for the most part. We've gotten people now who are laid back and they're just watching. It's almost as if people are saying, well, let me just see what's going to happen. I'm clocking out of this. I'm not going to participate. I'm just going to see what happens. And I'm saying this is dangerous to me because obviously people are believing that they only have 5 years for them to make a difference with a vote. And then on top of that, people are just so, I suppose, disillusioned, discouraged that they're not even calling to try to cheer on and say, well, they've done this good or they've done that bad or whatever. And this is in opposition politics as well as this is in the governance of the Bahamas. I'm wondering, how do you read that? What does that mean to you, two young men who want to go in an area that is very, very scary as far as the average person is concerned? They're going to even try to represent a constituency in the Honorable House of Assembly. How do you read that? What does that mean? Does that mean that we are apathetic? Does that mean that we've clocked out, that we're not interested? How do you read that as a young person moving through the streets in your locales, trying to determine what's the right direction to go in?
People are tired. People are just very, very, very tired. I've been working in an area for 15, 16 months. And when you sit and you listen to the people, they are basically sick and tired of being sick and tired. And they think that there needs to be a renewal. When you listen to what Miles Monroe said in the piece that you played, people feel today that there needs to be a change, a major change in who, the voices, the faces, the vision, the ideas of the people that seeks to represent them. And because they're not seeing it and they're not feeling it, they're just saying, it's the same old, let me just sit back and hopefully something else will happen.
Mm.
They're not doing what Howard is speaking about, becoming that activist person to cause these things to happen. But that's what it is. They're just tired. They like I said, the young persons, they don't believe in the politicians. They don't believe in those who seek to represent it, and the rest of them is just tired.
What do you wanted to answer
Yes,
that, but
yes.
That's fine. I want to go to another question. What do you think of the present leadership from a point of view as to do they inspire the present leadership of Prime Minister Christie, Right Honorable Prime Minister Perry Christie, and the leader of the opposition, Hubert Minnis, who I'm sure that you both are affiliated with. I take it that both of you have interest in free national movement candidacies and that kind of
Yes,
thing.
sir.
But what do you think of the present leadership and the perception as to where we are in the country with the present leadership, and if we're going from bad to good, or if we're going to stay with what we consider good and jump to bad? Or should I put it this way, if things were to change in the country, that we'd be jumping from out of the frying pan, which is no place to be, into the fire. In other words, when they make the comparisons of the leadership and the stars of the leadership and the characteristic of the leaders that we have on scene now at the front and the top of the line of the political parties, what are your honest opinions? And I do want your honest opinions as to what you think.
Well, for me, we'll start with the Prime Minister. Let's establish the protocol, right? Mr. Christie has a 40-plus year record of frontline politics, okay? Mr. Christie, as everyone knows, is a very inspiring fellow. The man, he could sell ice to Eskimos. He is good with the rhetoric. I believe he has a good heart. He is very great at instilling hope in people and making people believe in stuff. But when you compare that to his 8-year track record as Prime Minister and his 37, I believe, 38 now years as a representative for the Centerville/Farm Road area, it definitely leaves much to be desired. So Mr. Christie is great on the inspiring and the motivating, and it goes back to what I said initially, but he has a fundamental problem with getting things done and being consistent. And that's my personal opinion, taking into consideration my political biases.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Minnis, on the other hand, is not as well-spoken as Mr. Christie. Everybody knows that. I mean, we can be quite candid about that.
Mm-hmm.
But Dr. Minnis understands what young men and women, the future of this country, the persons who Dr. Miles Monroe were talking about. Dr. Minnis has said publicly that he is a transitional leader. He has said that publicly, that he is a transitional leader, and he is about pushing the next generation forward. And so they're polar opposites. On top of that, Dr. Minnis understands that the use of the team is very important. Part of the reason why some people are getting frustrated, not to delve into too much with the F&M at this time, is because they're saying, okay, we're taking too long to do things. On one level, they might be correct, that public perception, but on the other level, we are utilizing the internal resources of our party, which is unprecedented in the history of the Free National Movement. We are trying to get as much of a unified consensus from the greatest cross-section of persons in our party to move our party forward through our manifesto.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Christie, on the other hand, promoted his team in 2012, the young people, but has yet to utilize them. In fact, the young people in that party are on the fringes right now. They're teetering on the brink of elimination and the political wilderness because they've been underutilized, or they have been made to believe that they were going to be utilized and were sold a dream. So in our party, while Dr. Minnis doesn't have what we would call the charisma of a Christie, or the speaking of charisma, or the speaking ability of Christie, he has this foresight and this understanding of this present generation. I believe from my interactions with him and from what I know about him and my involvement in this party, Dr. Minnis is about utilizing this next generation of leaders because he understands that he is a transitional leader.
You're hanging on to that. You believe in that. Christie said something similar some time ago to a group of young people who are now within the party ranks. And I played a sound clip from him yesterday, and it doesn't seem like he's going anywhere. And maybe he shouldn't go anywhere because Christie seems to be the strongest person in that grouping now to perhaps lead them. But transitional leader, Howard says, Christie said he was a bridge to the future some time ago, and yet this is a very long bridge because the future has not happened for a lot. Well, I'm serious. The future has not happened for a lot of the younger ones that they may have been thinking, and so they perhaps became restless and decided to clock out. What are your thoughts when we look at the not so much the comparison of Christie and Mr. Minnis, but the level of leadership that's being provided in a country that has so many problems in it? Do you think that the job is adequate enough? Do you think that the job is being done satisfactory enough that people can hitch their ride a little longer?
Absolutely not. And I'll follow the way Howard did this. With regards to Christie, the Honorable Prime Minister, he's had a track record. He knows how to win elections. He knows how to win a seat, but he has not been effectual as a member of parliament. If you look at his area, it's one of the worst areas in the country in terms of representation. That's just a fact. You can drive through it, and anyone, that's just a fact. And certainly he's also had a track record of failures in various ministries. So I don't know why people expected that if you did these things over the course of time, that there would be any difference with regards to governance. So that's the problem we are facing in our country today. And that's the challenges that they're seeing within the PLP. With regards to Dr. Minnis is the reason that some of us, like me, is here. When Dr. Minnis became the leader, and he said much of what the kinds of things that Howard said, there were some persons who were like, yeah, we kind of heard it before. We thought about the bridge to the future. But then we saw it, where he would sit and listen to what do we call, some of us are calling our groupings, the Sweetwater people, the people who no one know. They don't know Colin Ingram. They don't know some of the other persons in our groups. But he sat and he listened, and he took counsel and advice from these very same young persons. And thus begin the problem, because you now have had persons who've been around for a very long time and used to things a certain way, and they've built it to be that way. Now getting uncomfortable because, well, who is Colin Ingram? Who is Howard Johnson?
Yeah, where they come from?
Who's Lincoln Bain? Where are these people coming from? Who talking about they seeking to be front runners and candidates in this party? Who are these people? So they become very uncomfortable. But people from outside the party should not look at it as we're having problems. No, there's significant change happening in the Free National Movement. There's fundamental things happening. And that's why there is so much angst. And that's why there is so much heat. Because if there wasn't change occurring in the Free National Movement, everything would be quiet. Because those persons who were in position would be comfortable, because they know things were going to be as it was.
What's
but
the end
reality,
game?
It isn't.
What do you think is the end game here? People are questioning whether Minnis will be able to put together a team that's going to be impressive, attractive, balanced, and one that's capable of governance at the end of the day. What is your end game here along those lines, as far as what you see, based on what you know? And when you make the comparison with the Prime Minister, Mr. Christie, he has a very good team as far as members of Parliament are concerned. People too, they think that Al-Qaeda's and Kaler's role and others like that have performed good, and Hope Strachan and others, and they're getting experience. And this is they meet the criteria to get a nomination and not end up like some people who had zero chance, according to Bradley Roberts, of getting a nomination anyway. But when we look at that, and you make the comparison, Christie, in fact, has a good team now. And I'm wondering if you're thinking, and what do you say when I say to you that he would be in a super position as far as what people are expecting Minnis to get done in 2 years and roll out candidates to the point where they know and feel comfortable about them. Some people are opting that, boy, we may end up with Christie to McGinn just because. How do you respond to that? Because really, many people in the public will ask that question on the serious note of where we are going for the future.
Two things, answering your question and piggybacking off what Howard said just now. When we made a call after convention for persons to come in and assist with the development of platforms and all these different things in the body, hundreds of people showed up, some of whom have never been in the Free National Movement headquarters prior to that point. Never.
You saw a new beginning.
So new people, all kinds of persons coming to assist us with developing our platform and various things in the party. Okay, so there's a great level of excitement. Additionally, we have had many persons writing in, wishing to be candidates for the Free National Movement. In fact, there's some areas that have up to 8 to 9 persons vying for a spot. So we are not going to have a problem or a challenge with finding the best team for the Free who is looking at the Free National Movement or considering the Free National Movement. They can put that out of their mind. There is a great level of excitement. And the fact that, as Howard said, he is very democratic and believes in this team concept. So when you persons may say that, oh, well, he's not an orator like Christie, but Howard is, Lanisha Roll is. So he's relying on his team. He's empowering a team, and that's bringing more excitement in the way that we think we're going to be able to craft a platform to transform this country.
Steve, see, here's the thing. Excuse me. And I don't give Christie a free pass simply because the prime minister, I don't give him a free pass, because if people were to really analyze this thing beyond the superficial, here's what we would come up with. Prime Minister Christie, out of the 3 persons who have been prime minister, has been the most prepared to be prime minister. Think about it. Lyndon Pinlin, Sir Lyndon Pinlin was 26 years old when he became a member of parliament in 1956. 11 years later, he became premier. He had 11 years of preparation as only an MP. As only an MP and leader of the PLP. Mr. Ingram came into frontline politics in 1977 as chairman of the PLP and became an MP in that election. So he had a few cabinet minister portfolios for a short period of time before being expelled. And then he was in the proverbial wilderness for 5 years, from 87 to 92, and became the leader of the FNM. So he had about maybe 5 cabinet minister and an MP, okay? And then subsequently became leader of the Free National Movement, right? Perry Christie now, from 74 to 77, a senator in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. From 77 to 92, a cabinet minister in various ministries, deputy leader of the PLP, co-deputy leader, and leader of the PLP. The most adequately prepared of the 3. And if you were to rank them in order of their success and priority, to me, Perry Christie would only be the one that stays in his number as the 3rd prime minister and number 3 on the list. This is what I'm trying to say. Dr. Minnis is new to this, okay? Minister, when Hubert Ingram became leader of the FNM in 1990, there was a learning curve. There was criticism, okay? There was lots of talk about whether he had the stuff to take the Free National Movement into a general election 2 years later. 92 was election. Ingram became the leader in 1990. So there were fundamental questions and criticisms about his leadership. Retrace your steps. Cecil Wallace. The talk was Cecil can't win a seat. How can Cecil become prime minister? He jumping all over the place trying to win a seat. Kendall Isaacs, I've heard, well, Kendall too pious. Kendall was too pious. He was too nice of a man to be a leader. He wasn't willing to do the things to become prime minister, etc., etc., etc. So leaders of the Free National Movement have their trial by fire. And if Dr. Minnis wasn't faced with any criticism right now, he should be afraid, because this is the trajectory of leaders of the Free National Movement.
We're going to open our telephone lines, run to a break, and I'm talking to the scene. They have been working in certain areas. We'll talk about that in a minute. I deliberately didn't say that at the beginning of the show because I want people to have an open mind as to what you're saying. There are fundamental questions that I want to ask you, and I shall when I come back, but I'll also open the lines and let the public get a shot at you today as to what's your basic fundamental principles about governance and all those kinds of things. You can call me, friends, at 325-023546, 325-024243, 325-025253. Get on the lines because Howard Johnson is here with me today, and I kind of like his style as to how he analyzes and says things, and so is the same with Colin Ingram. Of course, Colin Ingram is I've seen him before, and I've spoken with him before, but not at a level of politics where one wants to come to the forefront and be a leader. What's making a leader? What's his belief in what's his views on crime? What are his views on capital punishment? What are his views on employment and job creation? What are these things that they can do? How do we lick this this social problem that we have with the decadence that we see in so many areas? How do we deal with those things? Do these men have an idea? And if they have an idea, I'd like to hear them, because this is what it's all about. Are they going to make it as two of the new leaders in the new dispensation of a new country in this paradigm shift? I don't know, but at least we're talking with them, and they're getting a super opportunity here today on a massive audience on Hard Copy. And the people will be the judge of that. And you can say exactly what you're thinking when we come back here this evening on Hard Copy.
At Ron's Electric Motors, they repair and rewind all major brands of electric motors, including water pumps, generators, and the generator's back end, welding machines, electric lifts, air compressors, battery chargers, and more. They're equipped to handle up to 850 kilowatts and rewind up to 450 horsepower motors. They're conveniently located on the corner of Wolf and Clarence Roads and are open weekdays 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturdays till noon. They offer 24 hours emergency assistance. 9.
Oh, I love my island. Oh, my island.
Island made, locally produced products here in the Bahamas and available for purchase. For more information about our products, give us a call at 362-1102 or 362-1113. Island made, located in the Bacardi plants, encouraging you to buy Bahamian and support local entrepreneurship.
The choices we make can make us, like who we turn to for investment and retirement advice. Choosing CFAL means having a trusted advisor on your side, helping you build wealth and meet your financial goals. We manage pension assets for businesses and offer individual plans to help you design a secure retirement. We can provide brokerage services and comprehensive research support for clients needing a little more investment guidance. CFAL can help you build a portfolio you can be proud of. Visit us at cfal.com. CFAL sees your future.
Attention all shoppers. Win over $30,000 in trips this summer when you shop at Solomon's Cartwright and Fresh Market. Win round-trip tickets to New York, Atlanta, Panama, Cuba, Santo Domingo, and anywhere in the Bahamas. These brands in the single purchase: Hellman's, Pedigree, Joy, Coca-Cola, Libby, Sun Supreme, Mahatma, Bluebird, Shop. On a single purchase and win $30,000 only at Solomon's Cartwright and Fresh Market, Nassau and Freeport.
3 words catapulted him to millionaire status. He calls it a wealth whisper. the Commonwealth Embassy presents the Billionaire Believer Summit 2015. 1 day, 2 nights of intensive success training. Dynamic speakers include Dr. Shawanta Johnson, Greg S. Reed, and Dr. Mike Murdoch of the Wisdom Center. Mark your calendars and make your way to the British Colonial Hilton, June 22nd to 23rd. Register now at CommonwealthEmbassy.org or call 376-8054. It's out of this world.
Welcome back to Hard Copy. On this Thursday, we're talking with some new faces on wanting to get into the front line. Colin Ingram. And of course, Colin Ingram has been a businessman in this country for some time. He's been pursuing his associate degree at the College of the Bahamas. He was very active with college social life. He participated in numerous sporting and social activities, including business senator and presidential advisor. He is also the father of Tori Ingram, Valley Boy member, goes to Most Holy Trinity Anglican Church. And of course, he's been doing a number Eugene DePuche Law School. Of course, you know Howard Johnson. He ran in the 2012 general elections. He was a firebrand in the run-up in the elections, and a lot of people were pulling hard for him because they liked him. He then went back off to school, and he's come back home to get his hands back in a level, at a level where he wants to participate and be a part of the frontline politics in this country, and is one of the people who believes that he has something to bring. So we're talking with 2 young men here today, one who is working in area, I think you're in that Western Mount Moriah, Yellow Elder kind of area. That is Colin Ingram is. And of course, Howard, you're in the Eleuthera area, so as always, right?
Well,
you're not so sure where you're working.
Yeah, I'm not so sure at this moment. That is definitely a discussion that's taking place in the internal bowels of the party. What we're doing, if I may say just this tidbit, this election is about strategy, and it's about placing the pieces on the board, so to speak, in strategic places to be able to leverage the best opportunities as well as the person. So it's considering a lot, putting me somewhere where we can have the best possible impact from my strengths and my energies on the periphery. So Eleuthera is my desire. That's the first place where I would always want to run. That's my home. But the Free National Movement is consistent, and I'm fine going along with that as long as it brings us, the best possible outcome at the end of the day.
So you just came back home in January of this year.
Yes.
In January of this year, and you've been involved and actively participating with youth development and all that.
Absolutely. I'm on the graduation circuit right now. I've had five so far, I think.
You mean you're speaking to graduates?
Speaking at graduations and stuff, working with young people, mentoring some, just on a local level, things that's off the radar. Parents call me all the time and say, hey, why don't you come and talk to my son? Mentor him, take him under your wing. I help kids all the time. I have 5 students right now that are off to school on a scholarship in the state of Florida that I benefited from, and this Florida in-state tuition as if they were American citizens or permanent residents. And so that's my contribution, and so it's outside of the scope of politics that I'm operating, and that's what I believe in.
Yeah. 325-0235 or 6 is how you can call me here this afternoon should you want to have a word with Mr. Howard Johnson or Mr. Colin Ingram, even a word of encouragement. How do you think that they sound? Do you think that these gentlemen, what we are looking for as far as the new thrust of leadership in our country? You remember who they serve and whose they are. We say we need people with strong convictions on the moral ground. We say we need people who are looking out for young people and others to help build the country. To the forefront, who have a belief system. And on that score, I've got to ask you some questions that may be uncomfortable for some people, but the United Nations is doing a number of things these days, and they have got great influence upon our politicians, as they have upon many politicians and many legislators throughout the world, the United Nations I'm talking about.
And we see ourselves adopting the number of a lot of people and not so sure we should be making the adjustments to. One of them happens to be this this whole thing about gender equality from a perspective that there's some parts of that being pushed more so than others, and people have become leery of it. Though I think it's a good thing for us to have gender equality in its full scope, where everybody is basically equal and so forth and so on. But there's certain parts of an agenda being pushed that people become skeptical about. That's one. The other one is on capital punishment and law and order. The other is on immigration, and we have a lot of that in our country. People coming from different parts migrating to the Bahamas. Bahamian people want to know that anybody who is going to office would have a strong view, would have a grasp as to what's happening in our country from a point of view of how we're going to change the direction, how we're going to change the usual word trajectory as to where we're going in the future development of the Bahamas. Lots of monies are going back home on the immigration score by remittances. We see Christie brought a budget that is not really focused too much upon the fact that we do have a lot of remittances and hemorrhaging when it comes to money transfer out of the country from those who are here illegally and so forth and on. And I'm wondering, from a fundamental point of view, how do you weigh these issues and speak briefly, if you can, to these issues that Bahamian people want to see a switch? They don't want to know that we're going to just go wholesale and jump overboard and be a part of WTO just like that because some other people want it. In other words, the outsiders who are calling the shots are calling some big shots on the inside here, and it's not going too well for the Bahamian people who have a problem accepting most of those things. How would you deal with that, considering that governments are continuous? How would you go ahead?
Okay, I'll answer that question. Includes some of the most powerful countries in the world at the top. And then there's us, the little Bahamas, who is expected to just be bullied, quote unquote, or to be told exactly what you need to do and you should just jump on board. So it's the developed world really placing its imprint on the developing world countries. So you have to toe the line and follow suit because we have these inducements or we can hurt you in some way. I think that's on that macro level trickles down into our politicians on the micro level. In this country, in many instances, the politicians feel like, okay, well, hey, this is what Obama wants. This is what this one wants. And I'm just a parliament who represents 4,000 people in the Bahamas. Well, it has been my experience because I've lived 13 of the last 15 years in the developed world. The professional arena for jobs, okay? I've seen what my qualifications, my intelligence, and my merit can contribute that makes me competitive. So on that micro level, for me to be back home in the Bahamas and confronted with the big 800-pound gorilla in the room, I'm not going to back me. I'm just speaking for me. I don't have to back down and acquiesce because I don't see somebody with a foreign accent and with a lighter than me as someone who is smarter than me or who threatens me. I compete in the classroom and in the professional arena. So when it comes time for us to meet each other face to face in the political arena, I'm going to take a stand for what we need to do here in the Bahamas.
You're going to develop our pool of talent.
That's what I have to do. I have to look at what is in the best interest of the Bahamian people based on our sovereignty, on our culture, on our norms, our values, and our mores. And that's where my decision making on that fundamental level is going to originate from.
So when we look at this whole thing, Colin, people would wonder, would you advise, since your leader listens to you, and let's say hypothetically you are the next governor of the Bahamas, would it be business as usual? Will we have continuance in government along the lines of the outsiders dictating a lot of things? Like, for instance, us joining the WTO. We're supposed to join in 2014. We may have already joined by the time as the elections roll around, because this is 2015. And there's been procrastination there by the present government as to what we're really going to do, though they are minded to join. And though WTO is a world unto its own, would you be a person who would be looking for that to happen? Or do you believe that we can swim by ourselves as a country outside now of the ambit of WTO? We're the only to stand on our own and do what we have to do and still build our own wall and build our own economy? Or would you have to sell an idea that says we should join, and because you can't join the conditions, once you join, you join. That's it. You're in or you're out. I'm wondering, what do we do in a case like that when a lot of the things that they are talking about and promoting is not in our best interest as a developing country?
Thank you. Firstly, you asked if our country is in a position to be able to basically stand. And the reality is, as presently operated, no, we're not. When I spoke earlier and I mentioned the sovereign fund and being able to maximize the natural resources we have, aragonite, salt, etc., if we are able, if there is a shift in how we do governance and how we think about business in this country, then my answer to you then will be yes. Why do I say that? We can develop and establish a sovereign fund that would allow us to leverage the aragonite. And if it's necessary that if we find that, let me speak specifically about this. If we find that there are persons who have a contract or whatever the case may be, as we have been made to realize, that they need, it's a penalty for whatever dealing with that contract, let's pay it off. Because if it's $150,000, $250,000 a year, whatever it may be, let's deal with that. Because that aragonite should be under the purview of the country, so that we can then take it and use the aragonite, if we ever find oil, and use that to develop the country. When we do that, and we are able to go and leverage these things, we are now able to fund ourselves, independent of depending on the tourists that may arrive here, because we now have something that the rest of the world values and needs to be able to do and build these same very phones and other things that everyone needs around the world. When we're able to do those things, then we can stand up to the rest of the world and say to them, listen, we do not think that, as an example, the WTO or any other thing is in the best interest of our country. But we now have to position our country to do those things. Understood. The reality is we are not yet in that position. So we have to fundamentally change how we think about the development of our economy and the structure of our economy. Mm-hmm. There's some other things that we need to do with the economy. I still find it amazing that we in the Bahamas are scared to deal with allowing Bahamians to have the same right as any foreign person to come here and source financing from elsewhere around the world at the same rates. We must be penalized for being Bahamians to be able to do so. That is absolutely ridiculous, and it needs to stop. Mm-hmm. That one needs to stop yesterday. So if you're talking about thinking differently and understanding what you're thinking about, because I've operated in the business arena where you have had to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And like I would say, I am employed by a company that is a global company. We're building homes in Costa Rica. We're building homes in Canada. We build all kinds of major buildings all across the southeastern United States. That's the company I'm working for. I'm an executive on that company. And if you go on the sheet, I said everyone else is a lighter hue, and then this is a young fella who happens to be there, who's a Bahamian, a proud Bahamian, who has proven himself. I didn't get there because they didn't like me. I got there because I added value to the team. And when we position this new economy, then we stand up to the rest of the world. And if we negotiate from a position of strength, we are not there, sir. And that's why we're talking, Howard and others who are like us, who are going to do the necessary things to cause ourselves, this country, to position itself so we can stand up and say, no, no, no.
Let's talk very quickly about the whole idea of crime. Crime is basically out of hand. A lot of political crime, all a bit guilty of it. PLP recently, guilty, very guilty of it. They admit that, they know that. They wish, the Prime Minister told me that he wished that had never happened. He wished that could be erased. But what is done, and it is what it is. Mm-hmm. But having said that, what's the thrust do you think the country needs as far as looking at how we deal with crime? For instance, there seemed to be a hue and cry now that maybe we ought to bring in some foreign police, and that will help this thing slow down. Maybe you ought to really get this court thing going. And the PLP announced today through their Strong Bahamas campaign that swift justice is moving along quite fine, and they're very pleased. And that they build more courts, and that they're getting ready to launch and open all these 10 courts that they've put on there. What is it that needs to be the remedy? What is it in your minds that's the balm to...
I answer this from a professional standpoint because this isn't politics for me. This is my professional background. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, almost have a PhD in conflict resolution. I've worked in the three aspects of the criminal justice system in the United States. I've worked in law enforcement, I've worked in corrections, and I've worked in the courts in the United States. Part of our problem is that on the one hand, we seem to think successive government solves the problem of crime. That is an archaic outlook and modus operandi. On top of that, a lot of the problems that we have that are social in nature, okay, human toward human, come from the fact that people do not have conflict resolution skills. My little 2-year-old son is in school fighting over what's in lunch day. That's a conflict. We can teach conflict resolution skills from your baby. And then by the time you get a teenager, you are able to understand and know how to adequately manage your anger and your behavior when confronted with conflicts. These are the things that we need to put our resources into. Teaching our young people and us at our ages, because there's still some excuse me, and resources into training our people, educating them on how to handle and resolve conflicts. This needs to be a government, a public-private partnership in this country. I'm not saying we don't need police officers on the street. I'm not saying we don't need more resources. What I'm saying is we've been doing that for a long period of time, and the results are still counts every year, no matter who's in government. Records sometimes on what we are doing. Let's try some different initiatives and some stuff. When you put these resources out there, you're reacting to the criminal element and to what's going on in crime in our country. When you do what I say about teaching our children conflict resolution strategies and educating our people on how to handle their problems, then you're being pragmatic and proactive in tackling the problem. These are some of the things we have to do. And I have some plans, some more plans that I can talk about at a later date.
Yes, sir. You know, Howard is so right. But fundamental, we have a communication problem. The average young man, young woman, they don't know how to relate to each other. The average young man don't know how to relate to his friend. When you start to express yourself, man, you running on. Where are you going with all this long talk? That's a fundamental problem in our country. And because of that, we end up with the kinds of issues we have. We end up with the fights. We end up with all of these things all over YouTube, with the beating up each other and throwing things and doing all these kinds of
ugly
things. We end up with these young men speak to each other, and because they cannot speak to each other, they end up stabbing their uncle, their cousin, and their friend. That's the fundamental problem we have in this country. So if you're going to solve the crime problem in this country, you have to focus on the social and economic issues that face this country. And that we like to go and build these 2.0s and all these different things, have our fancy bands, but we tackle the serious issues. That's our challenge.
Very quickly, we move on to an area that is very, very concerning to many Bahamians. This mortgage relief program that Christie and his team campaigned on, that the Free National Movement started to talk about, and Christie picked it up, and Christie beat him with it. Happened. Let's look futuristically now. Let's just say that we don't get out of this maze, because this has been a rough time for people who are losing homes, and it doesn't seem that there's any resolution in place to have happen, even though the experts tell us that we've got to do some things at the central bank. They've got to relax some things. We've got to send a letter to these banks and say, look, hold the line on stuff, and make sure that people are able to, I think they say, lower the rate, the prime rate,
Yes, sir.
to the point where people can then pay less than they're paying now for mortgage and perhaps hold on to their homes. Many people are crying out that people who had houses for 15 years, have 50 more years to pay, or have already paid for 15 years, are losing homes. This cannot be right. It seems like the government has been paralyzed to really deal effectively with this mortgage relief program. Is there any hope that's going to have, say, a new group of people coming on the scene, whether they're a new group through the F&M new group, just on the surface of being new with new ideas? What would be ideas of solution along the lines of mortgage relief?
You know, there's a couple of things you mentioned just now. If it's interesting, if you were to have the prime rate lower, it'll also affect government debt. But anyway, we had a discussion in one of our forums where somebody said, you know, what's interesting? With the Bank of the Bahamas issue, the government immediately was able to come up with $100 million and put this in this particular area to be able to do these kinds of things. But they said, if they were serious about the mortgage relief, imagine what $100 million could do. Imagine what the homes of the average Bahamian. Imagine them taking that $100 million facility and crafting it and setting it up in such a way through the mortgage corporation, government entity, and the government then takes on the loans to this mortgage corporation, because if they're willing to do this for these 13 or whomever persons that we seem not to be able to find out who they are, why not do it for the 4 or 5 or 6,000 Bahamians? If you were that serious, to put it through the mortgage corporation, the government takes on the loan and allow the Bahamians to be able to maintain their homes and pay to the government a concessionary rate until the economy picks up and until the things get better. The jobs will come around, because they keep saying to us, the Bahamian people, that it's right around the corner. Now we've turned the corner. We've been turning the corner for 3 years and we still haven't yet to get around this corner. But if a government was serious about the mortgage relief program, that is a way to be able today, to be able to help Bahamians, especially those who fit in the category who's been paying for 12 or more years. And there are other opportunities too. You have where some people to be able to catch themselves while things are a bit rough. But the reality is, it is just pure talk. It is just pure talk. There are things that a government can do, but the fundamental thing that has to happen as well, sir, is we have to turn the economy around to allow for people to be able to make.
Here, the unemployment statistics show that they're growing in the three major islands, New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Abaco. I think it's 18% in Grand Bahama, 15% in New Providence, close to 20% in coming to school, perhaps around 6,000-7,000. That's going to add to this list of the amount of people looking for jobs or at least employable after they finish high school. And this unemployment rate continues to escalate. Now, it's escalating because it's been little to do on the market of job creation and finding a way to stimulate the economy through investment, foreign investment, direct, to get people working. Christie has gone to Albany and Sun and Bahama and all these other places on Eleuthera, Cotton Bay, San Salvador. He's really been working hard to see if he can find the kind of investment, I'm told, to put people to work. Now, these, of course, are jobs that would be considered to be domestic jobs in some cases, but we're hoping that at the same time it can jobs where Bahamians can own businesses in these establishments. But let's look at that. That's what's happening now, and it's not happening in a good way. People are not pleased with what they see. It's been basically the same old talking about and disappointment one after the other. What say if you all were to be in position to inherit a country with these kinds of problems? How do you go about with a growing with a proper idea or construct of job creations? What would you guys do? It should this country the way it is right now, and then have to put the people to work. What would be the creative juices on that?
Here's one thing quickly, Steve. As the you didn't tout just now, 31% in the 35-year-olds. I mean, that's a very, very, very scary statistic in this country. And you look at that group, they're disproportionately affected because not only do they have the highest unemployment numbers, but they are also the largest segment of the population in this country. So that's a double whammy when you look at those factors taken together, right? Well, here's the thing. Like Colin said with the $100 million, let's add the $12 million for Carnival in there as well. And all of these other monies that have been government wastage and the like over the last 3 years. If you take these things together, like he said about the housing thing, if you put all of invest in training and development, economic training and development for young people, create a serious small business sector, allow funding. I'm talking about Bahamas Development Bank 2.0. Okay, I mean, really doing some subs, not a jokey thing. That
Not the venture capital of $1 million.
not a jokey thing that don't really do nothing for nobody. Really, you put people to work. You get these young people out there as entrepreneurs. We have lots of young people in this country with talented business ideas, economic ideas, but they're crippled by what Colin is talking about. We don't have the same economic opportunities and access to cash as the foreigner. We provide them with these opportunities. Look, man, Steve, I grew up in Eleuthera, and the PLP is awesome at coming down there and sticking shovel in dirt. They are great at it, and nothing comes to fruition. I don't have a problem with an economic policy that is balanced. Yes, we need the foreign investor. Let them come in. But even this thing out for us. Let's provide some equality. If you're only able to wait a table and fold up some towels, you're earning an honest living. Go ahead and do that to the best of your ability. Sweep the street. But if you are capable of producing a business idea, if you are able to contribute to the economy and pay taxes, get these people to work. You also now put more people in the tax pool. If you can leverage these monies and employment opportunities and business opportunities for young people, Steve, what you are going to, in essence, do is place more people in your tax pool to pay your VAT, to pay down on your debt.
Let me say this. It's very simple. Release the chains. Release the chains. Here is the problem in this country. Because as a person who's an entrepreneur for this country for 13 years, there are groups and families in this country and people in this country who control this economy. And they've done all they could to maintain that level of control. You know why? Because it benefits them. But it hurts the greater economy. It benefits them and their families. What we need to do today, if we want to be able to help the 31%, if we want to be able to really grow this economy, is release the chains. Allow behemoths to access foreign capital. Remove the restrictions that central bank has with us being able to move capital back and forth and penalize us for moving monies out of this country. Finally, really allow Bahamians to be able to develop their idea. You know, there are countries in this world where Singapore, so other countries in the Nordic areas, where the government sets up these incubators like a Silicon Valley, that concept, where you allow Bahamians will be allowed to come in and do whatever their project is. Because we're not talking about finding just jobs. We're talking about allowing Bahamians to be able to use these ideas to become the kinds of entrepreneurs that will transform the economy,
to
try and transform the country. How that can be done? We can set up the structure where the government, who has all these extra employees, this is something that can be done. All this staff that we're saying that we're overstaffed and etc. Well, how about they be the back office for these persons and allow them to go and do whatever it is that they need to do, whether it's in the technology field or whatever it may be, to be able to go and tap into these markets. It can be done. It's done elsewhere. Why cannot we allow, not just in rhetoric, not just sending somebody to the bank and saying, you bring your business plan so we can teeth your ideas. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about a government actually providing an incubator system, the incentives to Bahamians to be able to transform this economy and become the Issas of the Bahamas. That's what we need. All this other stuff is not a bunch of nonsense.
Colin Ingram is talking here with us this evening. Howard Johnson, they're both two young men who want to take the country to another level. They are aligning themselves with the Free National Movement. And there are many others who we'll be talking with who align themselves with the PLP, with the DNA, with independence. We want to know who these young people are. You heard the names today, Colin Ingram, who you just heard talking, of course, Howard Johnson, who got a little play in the last election. And now you're going to hear more from him, I suppose, as he makes the rounds to talk about what we need to do in this paradigm shift. I've got calls on the line. I didn't take many calls today because I wanted to hear what you were saying, but let me take these calls. Hard copy, how are you?
Call, please.
Okay, all right. Hard copy, how are you?
Hey, Mr. McKinney, how you doing?
Hey there, how you doing? Papa?
Yes, sir. Rachel, no, thank God for life.
Wonderful.
Good day, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Ingram.
Good day, sir.
All right. I know you all must be aware of my views. I wanted to say, I think that's Mr. Ingram just now talk about the $100 million.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that was so. I mean, timely. And the way how he bring it was the average person could understand it. I mean, you say y'all is a group of sweet water, or
yes, sir. With the Sweetwater tennis.
We
didn't know no
you
brand
remember,
name.
You remember
Yeah.
Sweetwater? Well, you might remember Papa Nanny Pickup. You remember those tennis?
Yeah, the tennis what we used to wear in school.
Yeah.
I born in 1970. I remember them.
Okay, all right.
So we could afford back then, and we had to make the best of it. But for sweet water talkers in there, they making a lot of sense, Mr. McKinney. I mean, I might still not forget some of the change and some of the stuff what we went through with the Free National Movement. Might still be early for some of us, but we got to respect the people who they bringing forward if they making sense.
Yeah.
You know, we got to stop voting for party. We got to vote for the best person who come to say they want to represent us. And it's so sad when they're in opposition.
Yeah, I'm listening. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that. When they're in opposition, they have so much good things to say, and then when they become government, they start to get like, there's the boss and they ain't down with the people. All kind of foolishness is happening. But tell me something, gentlemen. I agree with what he's saying with the $100 million, and if the government could have do that, if my government who promised all, that's why them people we voted PLP, Many people was losing their homes. They still losing their homes. But it seems like the government is finding time to go and help to set what already, that had their time in life being successful or whatsoever. But the people who get promised, you could imagine that. The number man them get straight. They could have waited. I talking about the 16 or the 15 names what they ain't called. I guess they just need help right then. But what about the poor people? I'm happy to know they going ahead with the national health insurance. I don't want to ask these gentlemen if we could expect them to be like an Andre Rollins and a Renwood Wells, to stand up like a man. Now we know Dr. Hubert Ingram. So you'll have a lot of people who speak out and stand up against if they disagree, then what we familiar with in the past. In the past, we disappointed our people that used to speak of Mr. Ingram, even if they disagree, they didn't used to say nothing. So I don't want to know how you all feel about the policy, what you call the immigration policy. See, I ain't hear enough from the Free National Movement when it comes down to immigration. I'm glad you all on the talk show. I wish you all could come on more. And some of the senior persons in the party. I want to know how you all feel about the immigration. I want to know about the new immigration policy with this government, if you all support it. If you think it's inhumane what we doing, sending the people them back. and sending their children back to this new belongers permit. I don't know if you all think it's fair for the government to give two illegal parents who here, who born a child here, that make them a Bahamian, although their parents illegal, and give them some type of status what they call belongers permit. I think it's wrong. I think one of the parents should be a Bahamian, or have, if all two is foreigners, one got to be legal, have some kind of work permit. I enjoy listening to them today, Mr. McKinney.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your questions. We did mention immigration. We're going to tackle it in a minute, so make sure you have your notes, because immigration is the biggest thing that plagues the country right now. Immigration, crime, and a bad economy. And there are people who are looking for leadership in an area where there is this concern, immigration and all that. Let's take some other calls. Hard copy, good evening.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Sometimes I wonder.
Sometimes you wonder how you're doing.
When,
Capron.
when I hear these two fellas, they're massaging one another's egos.
That's what you call it?
It's a trip. They must come from La La Land.
So you wanted to ask them something, or you wanted to make a particular...
Apparently they know nothing of the inner workings of the FNM, and especially not a damn thing about Whitfield. Absolutely not. And all these fancy ideas they're coming with, all untested, because they theorize on everything that has happened or can happen in the United States, which does not happen. But that's why the whole government is tied up, left, right, and center, based on who's in and who is not.
But let me ask you this, George Capron. You would agree that we have to at least have a search of people in this country who may have the ambition to lead and see what they are worth and what they present. These two young men, they have been doing some things in their areas. They would like to be a part of a new Bahamas where people are doing things and there's more of an opportunity. And so they will step forward to express themselves. And I think that's a great thing. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that we should be hearing this kind of stuff from persons who want to lead, or you think we should just leave it to party politics to give us some people and say, hey, these are the people you got, deal with it?
No. You know, I don't think that.
Okay.
But by the same token, I am wary of people who are totally untested in anything, coming along and saying that they have the answer to all the problems that are in this country. They left the United States, which they keep quoting, with myriads of problems, and they theorize that from what they've been taught, and they believe they come here and it could happen overnight. It just doesn't work that way. And that is a problem that I have.
Okay.
And especially when a fellow gets up and he says Whitfield didn't do this and he had this problem and Ingram went in. If they know what happened and who were the movers and shakers behind the scenes which caused all this stuff.
Yeah, but Georgie,
and also in the PLC.
Yeah, I hear you, and if they had been guilty of that, I would have stopped them. That was not what they were saying. I mean, I don't know if you heard the whole thing. They made references to people who were strong leaders and people who had done their part and whatnot, and what people said. But nonetheless, these were strong people. That was the essence of the point.
But my point is, I'm speaking on them making reference. So really, what they know not of.
I see. Okay, I appreciate your call.
Very good, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Capron. All right. Hard copy, how are you?
Yes, a pleasant good afternoon, Mr. McKinney, and a pleasant good afternoon to your guest.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir.
See, that's the same way why the Bahamas is in the mess it in today, right? You have old people who know history, who do not teach us young people history, but will teach us lies, okay? And should have come out with the truth, because when the truth be told, if he knew history, then why attack the messenger?
Yeah,
I
see your point.
If the messenger is wrong, then you point out where he's wrong. You only could see what he says wrong, and you can't tell him the history. Man, we ain't in for that. All right. You know something, Mr. McKinney? In our country today, we have to be honest and And in being honest, we have to speak truth to all issues. You find that right now, the churches at one point used to have banks for their congregants. Right now, we have bankers losing their jobs, and what are they doing? How innovative are they? Are they putting together plans where they could assist the pastors and some of these churches just banking up monies instead of coming to the congregants and saying how they could help each other to become more productive in a down time in the economy? You know, there's so much. If these expertise would come together and educate the citizen, or even,
you made a point about that. Let me ask you a question here. What are your thoughts about some of the things expressed here today, and the idea of bringing out some new faces to give expression and give their views on where we are in the country? What do you think of that?
I always feel as though persons who have been abroad and see how other countries have a lot to offer our country, because they're Bahamians and they want to give back to the country, and this is their time now, because even the word of God tell you, I call the young man because he's strong. You see the man who just called, his time and finish. He ain't want to experiment with nothing new. You go to put him in front of a computer, he may not even know how to turn it on.
Understood.
Judge a handheld computer.
Yeah.
See, we have to respect the young people, and that's why you find that it was only said you bridging the old with the new, the bridge to nowhere. And that is one of the reasons why you find that young ministers in the House are frustrated, because they don't feel respected. And that is one of the reasons why members of parliament need to know the party constitution. And if they know the party constitution, then they know what they're getting into.
Yeah.
Because it's about one person.
I appreciate your call. Thank you for your contribution as always.
Sure.
Thank you very kindly. Hard copy, how are you?
Good afternoon, Mr. McKinney. How are you?
Thank you kindly. All is well.
Good. Good afternoon to your guests also.
Good afternoon.
Mr. McKinney, I'm the ultimate swing voter. I voted for just about every major political party. And I'm kind of fed up with all of them. What do these two young gentlemen of the S&M have to say about the persons who feel that there's no hope for the existing PRP or the two?
Yeah, I asked that question earlier. I'm happy you asked it again. I'm happy. You can hang up. I'll let them answer you. I'm happy for that question. What do you say to people who have lost hope in both the major political parties and they feel that there's nothing that they have to look forward to? How do you get these people excited again? Because remember now, if you are the men who people are looking for, you've got answers and you've got some solutions as to where we are going, because I'm sure that you both know that people are fed up with the two main political parties and are looking and searching for something that they figure they can put their hat on. How do you respond to what is he saying? Have you given any thought to that for those people who are finished with these political parties, how do you get them to stay interested with some of the new things I think you bring?
Well, Colin Ingram, I am happy you asked that question, but I want to touch the first person, the previous person, and then I want to come and I'll answer that question. Our involvement in FNM has been for years. In 1991, I won a scholarship to attend the College of the Bahamas from the Free National Movement. If you would note, in 1991, the Free National Movement was not the government. I represented Marathon. I worked with Algernon Island from 1987. I've been from a runner to somebody who assisted with the development of the data, to a chairman, to whatever was necessary, to coordinators, okay? When I determined that I wanted to get involved in politics, I went and I started reading. I sat at the archives on Marquis Street and I read every transcript from Gail, whomever it was. I read everything in there. Then I began and I asked questions from a young child, okay? Now, neither of us claim to be knowledgeable of any and everything, We don't claim that. Okay? What we do know is that both of us are heavily involved in the Free National Movement today. We do know that we are assisting on any number of committees today. Okay? We have great respect and regard for the former leaders and the former the MCMs and those persons who have fought, the freedom fighters who have paved the way for us. But today, we are the persons of this generation whose time is now, and we are ready, and we are out here saying to the FNM and to our country, yes, we're new voices. Yes, we're young. Yes, we may speak differently. Yes, we have different perspective. But guess what? The country needs different perspective. We absolutely need it. Now, with regards to the last caller and what it is that we think we bring that will cause them to pay attention to the Free National Movement, well, I can say to you emphatically, I've been on the ground working, and many of the persons who are most ardent supporters of me are persons who voted DNA in the last election. Fact. Persons who voted DNA in the last election. Because they had some very fundamental problems. They were tired of the same leadership. Just to be honest, I have great respect and regard as a wonderful prime minister and did wonderful work for this country. But the same thing where Christie is today, that's how many persons felt about the Free National Movement leadership at the time. And they did not come out and support us and went elsewhere. That's just what happened. Okay? That's the reality. Because they would tell you it. When you sit with them, they will tell you. Okay? So I've had an opportunity to sit with these people and discuss the ideas and discuss the initiatives specifically for the area, but nationally as well. And guess what? They feel that I am serious. They feel that I am sincere. Because the problem for too long, especially with many of us in the FNM, to be quite honest, is we've been kind of stiff. Bahamians want to feel that you care, that you have the kinds of ideas, and you're willing to sit down and work with the people of this country to transform this country. And I assure you, Colin Ingram, Howard Johnson, the Nisha Rolls of this country, Frankie Campbell's are ready and willing to do the necessary work. We don't claim perfection. We don't claim all knowledge. But we do claim that we have a passion for our country, and we will do what necessary to transform this country for better quality life.
Steve, I just want to preface my remarks quickly by saying, to Mr. Capron, I think you said his name was. I'm hoping he was listening when you played the Miles Monroe clip at the beginning. He talked about the ideas of the young people blowing your mind. So I would sum up what Mr. Capron said to blowing your mind ideas. The La La Land that he referred to myself and Colin living in, that's what Miles Monroe deemed the next Bahamas. So my advice to Mr. Capron would be, decide where you want to be. In the last moment that Miles Monroe talked about, or do you want to be in the next Bahamas? And that's what his decision has to be based on. But we're going into the next Bahamas whether he likes it or not. So he can criticize it and he can call it whatever he wants, respectfully so, and I don't have a problem with that. But we're going into the next Bahamas. We're untested, but Sir Lyndon Pinland was in 1956. Perry Christie was in 1977. Hubert Ingram was in 1977. They are seasoned political veterans with accomplishments under their belt, but it started with day one. And that's where we're starting. So give us our chance. On top of that, to answer the question quickly that the young man asked, Steve, I talk about it through action, my actions, okay? And my actions are this. I sat in the United States for years, and I had the option to stay there. I used to listen into the talk shows online, and I would hear all of the problems. People vent, on the talk shows. It's their opportunity to say what they have to say, but that's not a solution. A lot of times, people call talk shows and they highlight what the problems are, but they don't offer any solutions. I decided to come back and be a part of the solution. The very same apathetic voter that he is saying that he is, Colin and I have the option of being that too. We're not disconnected from that reality, but we've decided that instead of throwing our little darts, like the fellas who were trying to get in the city of Troy, instead of throwing the little darts from the outside, where the walls are impenetrable, we decided to get inside the Trojan horse and get into the city. And that's where you can cause the chaos and make the fundamental changes. Get in the Trojan horse. So we decided to forego other things we could be doing with our lives, get into the bowels of the free national movement where our ideas and our plans can emerge and come to the forefront. And it is incumbent upon us to not only be a part of the leadership teams in the FNM, but to convince them, if there's any reservation, convince them with our plans and ideas that this is the direction we need to go, because we are representing that next generation of Bahamians.
Hard copy, how you doing?
Good evening, Steve.
Yeah, you're on with Howard Johnson and Colin Ingram, and they are a part of a growing group of people who you'll be hearing from all walks of life, because the prophecy has been said, and most Bahamians believe it. I've done my surveys, and I will tell you that people are looking for new people right now. How are you doing, my friend?
Wonderful, and I'm with you 100%. And gentlemen, how are you?
We're good, sir.
Good to hear from you, sir.
Wonderful. Steve, before I forget and move on, the gentleman that called yesterday about the perpetual motion electricity idea.
Yeah.
Please send me his number. I have an investor in South Africa who wants to talk to him.
Oh, great. I've got his numbers. I've got to give him a call and hook you all up.
Okay.
Because he did call me back last night. Thank you.
Okay. Now, gentlemen, I've been listening to you, and I'm sure there are lots of people like you who are going to be coming to the fore between now and 2017. And you have good ideas, and you speak real. However, Steve has pointed out that one of the major problems in our country is immigration. I've not heard you expound on that. Above that and beyond that, the chief major problem in our country is corruption. Immigration problem exists because of corruption. We've done the numbers. We know we deal with $150 to $175 million a year on this Haitian problem, the Haitians coming in. Now, you need to address corruption, because the country is steeped in corruption. That's not my words. That's what it is. Case in point, the former FNM government, right before the election, had their Ministry of Tourism, we would call his name, their Minister of Tourism, caught sitting in the cookie jar with $5 million that disappeared through his shell company with some guy in Florida who knows nothing about tourism. And neither government, so I'm not pointing fingers at you, neither government has addressed where that $5 billion went, which confirms collaborative corruption. Right? Now, how are you gentlemen, or what do you gentlemen intend to do to address the systemic corruption in our country that has rendered us basically dysfunctional in all areas? Please tell us what your plans are to deal with systemic corruption from the top to the bottom, because until you can articulate that, or until you can do that, this country is going nowhere. I'll shut up and listen to you.
Thank you for your call, Pat. Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, caller, for the question. We know we live in a country that believes we have to work a wipe. You know, that's how we go. Okay, we like to work a wipe. When we come into the customs and we come in from the United States, we spend thousands of dollars, but we only spend $200 or $300. Let's work a wipe. When we are trying to get in the club and we see our boy there, that's my boy. Let me in. That's my boy. Let's work a wipe. That is our culture. So what you're talking about really is, how do we change the culture of our country that will then be reflected in our governance? There are some legislations that would have to be introduced to cause us to be able to operate in a certain way. People often speak about the Freedom of Information Act. You hear that the chairman of the Free National Movement and the leadership has been speaking about the ombudsman and all of these kinds of policies, laws that we would need to implement to protect the politicians from themselves. So our leader has made it very clear that is our intention to present those legislation upfront so that we be very clear that the kind of government that we will seek to operate under. Okay, sir? So I hear your concern. I appreciate what you're saying, and I totally agree with you because we've heard the reports from the United States continues for the second year in a row saying that we are challenged in this country with how we do business. And as a business person, I know the kind of hell other business people catch in this country. So you're exactly right. And we will be doing things very differently by introducing the kinds of policies and laws.
I know I agree with what Colin said, everything that he said. I don't want to delve into that any further because we're running out of time. But I would say this. In the last 42 years of our governance, as far as political corruption is concerned, we've had one person who sat in the government convicted of political corruption and served a short period of time in jail. One person. So are you telling me that in 42 years of governance, there's only been one person? I don't care what party you're talking about now. I'm talking as a Bahamian. There's only been one person who's done something politically corrupt in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, deserving of going to jail. Let's start putting people in jail in addition to everything Colin is saying if you're found guilty of political corruption.
And you fellas are prepared to support that kind of...
Yeah,
absolutely.
Put me in jail too if I do anything.
Absolutely.
Let that be hanging over my head.
Absolutely.
I don't have a problem.
It has
with
to
that.
change.
Okay, let's take a final call. Hard copy, how are you?
Hello,
Yes, sir.
Mr. McKinney?
That's me. You're live with me. I'm guilty.
Yeah, I haven't called your show for a little while, and I think I left something at your office in connection with the same topic that you're on right now.
Okay, I don't know who I'm talking to, but I read a lot of mail every day.
Yeah, well, I want to commend the young men that are your guests right now for coming forward and wanting to vie for leadership in our country. I think it's great, and I listen to them, and they have some great ideas. So I don't have a problem with that. My only problem is that I believe that certain things in our country is only slick political moves. Let me explain, Mr. McKinney. The PLP, the last election, knew that the Bahamian people was hurting, and knew that the Bahamian people wanted somebody to believe in them. So their slick political ad was, we believe in Bahamians. Now today, all of the political parties know that the Bahamian people want new leadership, that the Bahamian people want vibrant leadership, that the Bahamian people want something different. So they're using these men as political pawns. They go out and get these young people, they use them as political pawns. These young men will not make a real difference in the party because the old guard would not allow them to. This is the reason why we're having the problem with the PLP and the young men now speaking up.
Well, we've got to start from somewhere, and I hear what you're saying, but I think not. I'm of the school of thought, my friend, that we need a paradigm shift, and there are more people who are believing in that and coming on the scene. And we're going to have the same talk, as you put it just now, that these guys are using pawns. These guys are not sent to me by the F&M. That's why I didn't preach that about them when they came on. I knew what their ambitions were.
I understand that.
But I'm saying we've got to start from somewhere. I'm going to talk with a bunch of people over the next few weeks. I'll tell you that, God willing, because we need to have new ideas stimulated. I would like to talk with you as well, because young people today who are at the center of the focus of everything, even with high unemployment, must have some say. And the constituency of young people now tells me that we have a disconnect with the old God, as the old weapons of Miles Monroe talked about. And as a result of that, we're missing a big part of our development because we're not believing in them, and we don't want to hear them. We almost say when we see them and we hear them, we say, well, they send them. They don't trust them. Well, if we don't do that, my friend, when are we going to begin the process of the transition?
I'm agreeing with you, Mr. McKinney, and I believe in young people. I believe in these young men. I tell you what, though, let me make this. Let me ask this to them: if they were to run for the leadership of the party, of the FNM leadership, I'm talking about, because only the leader really makes a difference in this country. I would ask them to run for leadership, run for the leadership of the FNM and the deputy leader of the FNM, and I'd be behind them 100%.
I see.
You understand?
I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, you're going to get a lot of unreasonable notions to say, well, prove a point to me. In building a country, we mustn't be foolish. We must not squander. We must be prudent, we must be focused, and we must be pointed in the direction that we want to go. We must be grounded in some kind of philosophy. Today, I think that both of you have expressed some level of philosophy, though a lot of that people would say, well, we heard some of that before. But we need to hear from people who are sincere. I asked you a couple of fundamental questions today for the record, because as I do these shows to show who we know and who have been here, I'm compiling a composite of a young man by the name of Howard Johnson and one by the name of Colin Ingram, so that in due course we go and revisit who are these people. Are they marching to the manner they spoke? Are they the people who we should keep an eye on? That's what this is all about, because yes, the country is in search and media is doing its part. We are in search of new, fresh leadership and new, fresh ideas and new, fresh philosophies. So we give you I suppose, your 15 minutes of fame, so to speak, to say what it is all about. People want to hear clear, articulate positions on fundamental things. A couple of them we covered today, and that was your belief and your belief system. Because the first thing is that we scrutinize it. We want to know who are of God and who have those kinds of principles, because that's what we're going to need going forward. We don't need to know but no jive time people who are interested in self-aggrandizement and their self-perpetual methods that they want to live long in politics and jive people around. The new paradigm shift that Dr. Monroe is talking about, where we will hear from people who we've never seen before, who've got ideas that will blow your mind, that will say, hey, we could latch onto that. Like how you're talking about how we could develop the sovereign wealth fund, things like that. That's the new talk. That's the talk that Bahamians want to hear, because we won't be empowered. That's the talk that we seek to make sure that young people like Nathan and them can have something to shoot for. My producer. I mean, they want to hear where we're going, not where we've been, and why we can't get where we're going. They don't want to hear why we can't get there. They want to hear this is what is happening, but this is how we're going to get to where we ought to be. And I think today, for the first one, it's not so bad a start. I think that as you think and consider, and I hope that this being on Hard Copy today motivates you to get serious if you're not serious, and no half step, to go and try to see how you can find others like you in the PLP, in the FNM, in the DNA, to bring about new people. There's new ideas need to flow. I'm telling you this. I do talk show. I've been doing it all my life. I've been in this business long enough to tell you that it's stale what we have now. Everything is stale. You ever get tired of eating corned beef and grits every morning? Okay. Well, it's stale now. We need to have some new, fresh ideas, some new ingredients. You know, somebody put some mushrooms in the corned beef one day, and I thought, hey, this is beautiful. We need new ideas to be fleshed out in the public, to inspire some people to come along and think along. If we don't do it this time, then you will always be outside of your time. It'll never be your time. Absolutely. You've got to take your time. Nobody is going to give you anything, not in politics. You've got to ascend and take your time. Grab your time, your spotlight is what I'm saying, and do what you have to do. So I hope that those persons listening in today would have been motivated, at least inspired by you, that, yeah, we are on a move now. No matter what they think, we are on a move as a country looking for fresh ideas. That all and sundry know that. In the PLP, in the FNM and the DNA. We will showcase them. And there's no strings attached. We just want to know if there's anyone out there who want to help to build a country. All this talk, negative talk, all this talk about promises. We want real solutions now. And the only way we can get that is if we invest in some new men who decide that they're strong and ready to take a chance. Are you strong and ready to take a chance, Howard Johnson?
Absolutely.
Are you strong and ready to take a chance?
Absolutely.
Because you realize that this is a cutthroat business,
Yes,
and you could be cut down to your knees and never recover. You ready to take that? You got that kind of courage?
Absolutely, sir.
Yes, sir.
Do you have the courage, Howard?
Absolutely.
Because you're going to need plenty of it.
Yes.
You got your faith in God?
Definitely.
Well, you're going to need plenty of that. You got your prayer warriors?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You're going to need plenty of them. You got truth on your side?
Oh, yes.
You're honest?
Yes.
You want to work?
Yes.
You want to serve?
Yes.
You realize that the people are in charge of you all.
Yes, sir.
You realize that the people are the bosses.
Absolutely.
Well, listen. You tell me yes, you tell me yeah. I'm watching you. I've got you on the record on a number of issues. I'm not so clear on the immigration issue. I want you to think about that because we can't take no more. There's no more room in the inn. We have to find a way to stop the remittances, the illegals, all of that. How we can clean things up. How are we going to grow the economy by putting our own people to work? I'm happy, though, with the job that you're doing in your communities with helping young men and you're helping young women. And I'm happy with that. I'm happy that you're grounded in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ to the point where at least you know him. You may not be practicing him as much as you should, but guess what? At least you know him. And if you teach a young man these things, when he gets old, he will not depart from them. And if he ever gets in trouble and he departs from them, he'll find his way back to them. This is a good thing. And so that's why I asked you the questions, because Howard, I can tell you, we sent many young men off to school. They came back foolish and stupid. They don't even believe in God no more. And I'm concerned about that. And that's why I'm telling you, for this country to go to another level, you can't want to go to another level in the prophecy of a man who believed in God. And you don't believe in God.
Absolutely.
This is the difference right now. All right. So I want to thank you both for being a part of it today. Let me just read some text messages that came in while you were talking. Good afternoon, Steve. Say hello to Howard from his family and JC. Steve seems like ZNS Channel 40 shut down because Andrew Rollins is speaking today. Hey, that's somebody from Lucha for sure.
Okay.
Taking notes. This one says, Steve, it's no doubt in my mind that most of these men go into politics with good intentions, but once in, they become slaves to the party's constitution, which disconnects them from their constituency and binds them to the party's lines. And people are concerned about that. They're hoping that this is not the case with you all. That you will. That's why the guy called and said, you got to be like Rollins and Wells and Gregory, who stand on their convictions. That's another thing you've got to be able to do. Are you willing to stand on your convictions?
I am.
This one says, hi, Steve. You have two good young men in that studio from the FNM. As more young men like them stepping forward, Menace is now surrounding himself with young men and women, unlike Christie, who's supposed to be the bridge to the future. The young voters will go with Menace. Mount Moriah will be red and South Beach will be red. This one says, Steve, I'm a resident of Mount Moriah, and that young man came in this area and got his hands dirty and helped us clean up the area. And Yellow L is going with that. The area in Yellow L is going with that man in the studio. F&M got my vote. I'm 18 Ingram from Mount Moriah is what they say. This one says, Steve, please ask Howard if he had read the constitution of the F&M, PLP, and DNA. These parties' constitution does not allow MPs to be truly independent. Their allegiance is to the party first. So all the pretty talk ain't believable until all parties make significant changes to their constitution to remove the written dictatorship of these parties. What he's talking about here, this person, a member of parliament can be the best guy in the world, wants to build the roads, wants to fix the parks, but if the man who's in charge of finance is also the prime minister, and he says that there ain't time for that yet, dog, eat your lunch. And not only that, even on fundamental issues, if he says, look, we're voting yes for VAT, and anybody who ain't want to vote yes, I don't want to see inside this house, and they disappeared, only a couple vote yes, and they set up a majority, and so it went through, but many people on that VAT vote were not there, including Christie. See, these are things that people have to watch. And of course, Christie would say that he was out on business. You know, we worship him, they were on business. I know, but still, sometimes certain things can wait. If you want to lead by leadership, if you want to lead by example, you ought to be there to mark your X or vote in a particular thing. At least Ingham did that, even though Ingham's whole plane burned down when he did that. His whole existence, voting for the BTC thing, and who was in, who was out, and they all went down together in flames. And that happens. But he went on his conviction. That's the difference. So these are things that people want to say. Constitutional changes within the party, within the party structure is very important. And if you're not able to change that, you're really under dictatorship and you really have not much power. Very quickly.
I just want to respond to this so very quickly. One of the things that, and Howard spoke this earlier, we have done some things differently. We are actually having persons who are seeking candidacy to be a part of the platform committee. So we're not going to be handed a document that we know not where it came from. We are part of the grouping that is developing the document that we will be presenting to the people. So that makes a fundamental difference in how things will be presented, and the fact that we can't stand on this because we're going to stand on things that we help build.
Understood. Now let me read this final text, and I'm gonna let you go because I'm way over time.
Yes, sir.
And next time they'll say, "Well, Steve, you let them fellas go until 1:45, and you only want to knock us over at 7." Well, these things happen sometimes. This one says, Team Menace will feature a whole lot of young and bright candidates. The Beach Boys will make the country proud. And the FNM, it's the young people time. Go for it, is what this person here says. Go for it. I'm going to have to go for it and go home because our time has come and gone. I appreciate you, Howard Johnson, for coming by. I appreciate you, Colin, for being here as well today. And I know that you've been doing a number of things in building the country through the company, the way you're a senior executive. I didn't talk about those things because I wanted people to see you for who you are in living color without giving you all your trimmings of all the PhD that you're pursuing there, Howard, and of course, all of the degrees that you have and all the things that you've done through Eugene Depute Law School and helping in those areas and helping with the young people and mentoring them. That is commendable of you. I say, listen, go and take your chance because the country needs young men. I appreciate you both.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Let's go home, Nathan.
Hot Copy has been a presentation of Bank of the Bahamas, BTC Every Day, Super Value, the McKinney Media Group, Island Made Products, Ministry of Tourism, AML Foods, Solomon's Fresh Market and Cartwright, Advantage Insurance and Brokers, Super Wash, Ron's Electric Motors, Sky Bahamas, Seafowl, the Billionaire Believer Summit, Executive Printers, Henry F. Store, and the Blue Ultra Pure Drinking Water. Tonight's show has been produced by the one and only able and capable extraordinaire engineer. His name is Nathan Rule, and he's good at what he does. He's a young person, too. And let me just say, tomorrow we come back to the show. We're going to be live tomorrow. I've got a number of guests, but we're going to talk about some swift justice and some things like that. I got some sound bites from Allison Maynard Gibson. We see that the government of the Bahamas is pushing the whole idea of swift justice, all the new courts that they're building. Let's see what's good in that. We'll talk about that tomorrow, right here on the show. Good night from Hot Copy.
This is Peace Radio After Dark.